Sifters. It's GameFace episode 88. I know I say this every single episode that we have a great episode, but today I truly mean it. Lots of big games. This is actually a game-focused episode instead of topic-focused.
One day you're going to have to just say, like, today sucks.
Yeah.
But we got nothing.
I've tried to stay optimistic. I always think they're going to be awesome. You never know until the show happens. But I promise you, today is going to be a great episode. The cat is out of the bag on Destiny 2, and we're going to talk all about it.
And we're going to deal with Injustice 2, which until just this moment I did not realize does not have a subtitle.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, the God, they ditched the gods among us.
The gods are no longer among us.
And lastly, we're going to talk about a game that, as I've been playing, I've noticed is a mashup of like 4 or 5 of my favorite games, and that game is The Surge. Let's go! Greetings and salutations. Happy Friday afternoon from your friends at Sifted. I'm Shane Satterfield.
I'm Matt Kyle.
And we love you. We got some big games coming out. Strange for so many big games to be coming out and good games to come out around this time of year.
Yeah.
Lots of big events that happened this week as well. We're going to talk about all that stuff. It's going to be a great episode, and it's action-packed and packed with content, so we got to get straight to it. First, we're going to talk about Injustice 2. Matt, this game has been scoring sky high.
Yep.
Probably the highest review scores I've seen for a fighting game since maybe Street Fighter 4.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty true.
I think Street Fighter 4 netted out at around a 9.1, 9.2 Metacritic. This game's tracking around that 9 level. Is it up to that quality?
I don't know if it's up to that quality in terms of like a tournament fighter, like something you'll see at EVO for the next 10 years or something.
Yeah.
But it probably has the most single-player content I've ever seen in a fighting game. So that's, I assume, one of the key elements is that, like, even if you don't have friends to play with, you got a lot to do.
We'll get to the campaign in a second, because that's something we should definitely talk extensively about. But what other sort of single-player stuff is there?
Well, the main meat of the single-player stuff is something called the multiverse, which is, it's actually a little bit like a mobile game. Like, because when you, the idea, I mean, the DC universe has always had this idea that there's a whole bunch of alternate Earths, Crisis on Infinite Earths and all that stuff. And so the idea here is you go into the multiverse and you get shown like a collection of planets, and they're all alternate Earths. And they each have kind of a little fluff thing that tells you, oh, Apocalypse is invading Earth in this one, or Superman is evil on this one, or Batman has gotten a Green Lantern ring and he's wreaking havoc and you have to stop him. None of that really matters. Like, it doesn't actually bear anything on it, but like basically these planets are there for a limited amount of time.
So they're like events.
They're like events, yeah. So they're called events, in fact. And so they can last as short as like 5 hours and as long as, like, I mean, I think there's one Apocalypse one that's up for like the next 2 weeks or something. But basically, you go in, and each one has a bunch of missions, and the missions are just like, you know, a line of fighters to fight. You know, you have to fight a bunch of them in a row, and sometimes there's special.
So they're just ladders of.
They're ladders, but sometimes there's special effects. Like I've played one where there's acid rain pops up once in a while, and if you're under the acid rain cloud, you get constantly damaged. There's one I played where the Joker's your ally, so you can call him in as like an assist. There's one where there's somebody.
And can the other player? Are you playing against other people?
No,
or
it's all single player.
Okay.
And there's one where like you can like there's people throwing rockets at you from off screen and stuff. And so as you beat these things, you get mother boxes, which are
loot boxes.
Loot boxes. I mean, mother boxes are computers from, you know, the Jack Kirby's New God stuff. But they're all there. You have bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and diamond loot boxes, and you open them and you get gear and abilities and background stuff. And because they turned this game into a loot game.
They did.
So,
well, every game is being turned into a loot game.
So, I mean, on the plus side, you can buy the boxes with like currency that you buy with real money. But I've gotten like 100 and for just playing normal like this. They're not
good ones though.
Yeah, I've gotten some. My Batman.
Any diamonds?
I have gotten 3 diamonds.
Wow.
Those tend to come from like you get one I think for completing the story mode. You get one for completing like some of the tutorial stuff. Like they give it to you for like completing major milestones. And then on top of that, there's loot boxes you get from being in the guilds.
And how does that work?
You just join a guild. However, you know, you can either have it invite only or open, which anyone can join. There are up to 50 people in a guild, and basically everything you do once you're in a guild contributes to the guild's totals. Like they track every kind of stat imaginable, and as the guild as a whole gets completes things like open a certain number of loot boxes, or do a certain amount of damage to boss characters, or whatever, or complete a certain number of events, you get a guild loot box, which has different stuff in it.
So that's a little bit like the factions in For Honor?
Yeah.
Where everyone kind of joins a faction, and then you all work together to kind of accomplish a goal?
Yeah, it's not as detailed in the sense that factions has like a strategic map and stuff,
right.
But it's more of a join with other players, and the stuff you're doing gains another level of relevance in terms of like getting you stuff.
Now, do you actually interact with the other people in your guild in any way? No.
So
there's a message board where you can go?
No, there's a chat room.
Oh, okay.
So like if you load up the guild screen, there is a chat room where you can talk to each other.
Okay.
And it shows all your totals and shows who's gaining the most points and shows your rank. My guild was ranked number 4 for a while.
Wow.
It no longer is.
Yeah. Now that more people have been
playing. But for like 2 or 3 days, we were in the top
Not
10.
Bad.
And then I assume everybody had to go back to work or something.
Yeah.
But there is a lot to do. I mean, of course, the multiverse stuff never runs out, and like some of it's level driven, and then there's special objectives on each multiverse event where like, beat this particular stage, beat it with Harley Quinn,
right?
Or don't use uppercuts, and then so it's basically like a little micro challenges you can.
Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
It keeps it fresh. It goes kind of forever, and the loot thing keeps you kind of interested, and it's a fast way to level up fighters, because you have a fighter level like all games do now, but each fighter also has a level. Each fighter can level up to level 20, and their level determines which gear they can use. So like right now I've got a bunch of like epic gear for like Harley Quinn, and she's still level 4, so she can't use it yet.
And that
so
gear,
there's an incentive to use each character.
That gear transfers over to all modes, right? When you go online, your character will have that customized look.
Have a customized look, although they won't have the effects.
Okay,
I believe
that makes sense.
Like because they boost substantially.
Okay.
They can substantially and add like special effects, and like there's like if you're wearing a full set, you get a special bonus effects from. It's like Diablo.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they deactivate all that
for
when
balancing
you go online.
purposes.
You just look different.
Yeah.
And you can look pretty drastically different depending on what gear you have. Like. And of course, there are some skins for certain characters that turn them into completely different characters.
Right.
But I mean, Batman always more or less looks the same. But like some of the other characters can look like radically different, like different masks and different faces, and some like Swamp Thing can look very different from player to player.
Is there a tutorial in the game?
Yeah, there's a fairly extensive tutorial that teaches you all the basics. And then each character actually has their own tutorial.
Oh, wow.
That sort of teaches you their basic combos and basic moves and how they work, which is, again, something that fighting games desperately need.
Yeah.
So you can go to the tutorial screen, and you go through it asks you to go through the main tutorial at the beginning, and once you finish that, you go back to the tutorial screen. There's a thing at the option at the bottom that says character, and you go there, and you can pick any of the characters and list them with at first it'll be like zero, like Batman's like 0 out of 6, and like Superman's 0 out of 10. So they have that's how many stages of the individual tutorial they have.
Oh, okay.
And then once you finish that, they'll be listed as you have 6 out of 6, you have 10 out of 10. So then I think you get a special either a platinum or a diamond mother box for finishing all of those. And there might actually be a trophy for it. I don't know.
All right, so let's move on to the campaign. IGN took all the cinematics from the campaign and stitched them together into one video that was almost 3 hours long.
Yeah, it's a long one.
A lot of people, at least on Sifted, have been saying that those things stitched together make a better DC movie than most of the films that have come out over the last decade.
I would agree with that.
Wow. Is that an indictment of how good the story is in this, or how bad the movies have been?
Bit of both.
Yeah.
I think the last good DC movie was The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And this one, here's the thing. This one is still pretty dark and grim and violent in places, but it's not all that. And it remembers who the characters are, and there's some nice bits where, because it's the aftermath of the first game, plus there's some comics in between that I guess.
There's a comic series right now that's going on for Injustice 2.
There was Injustice had a big comic series that lasted a lot of issues. Like there was 5 years. So it's called Injustice Year 1, Year 2, Year 3, Year 4, Year 5, and I think they all had 24 issues per year, and they tell the story
a lot.
the point from which it's a prequel to the first game. So it tells a story of from when Superman kills the Joker to how everything gets to the state it is in when the first game begins.
Okay.
And
do they give you a recap?
Really,
or I guess it wouldn't be a recap.
Not really. They give you a little bit. I mean, basically, they like Superman turned evil and took over the world, and some of these other guys helped him. But part of the problem, like, so that comic, by the way, is really good, like shockingly good. And so then they did a comic called Ground Zeroes, which retells the game. And then they've been doing a comic recently called Injustice 2, which bridges the gap between the last game and the new game.
Right.
So if I remember correctly, Superman got banished to the Phantom Zone at the end of the first game. But in this game, at the beginning of this game, he's being held in a cell, a prison cell, at a Luther Wayne Foundation that's bathed in red sunlight, so he doesn't have his powers.
Right.
And I think the comics explain how that I think he escaped the Phantom Zone or something, because he makes reference to the fact that the Phantom Zone can't hold him during the game. But basically, so everything's been dealt with from the last game. Like, it opens with Bruce Wayne talking to some kind of judiciary panel about how, we have to move on and da-da-da-da. It seems like it's been a few years later. The guys who worked with Superman are in jail. And then Brainiac shows up. And Brainiac is one of Superman's key villains. In this continuity, he's the one who killed Superman's parents and destroyed Krypton, which he is in some continuities. And so the idea is, like, Batman goes to Superman and is like, tell me everything you can tell me about Brainiac. And Superman's like, how do you know who that is?
Right.
Like, you can't beat him without me. And Batman's like, I'll find a way. And of course, the story is about how all these heroes that recently fought a war against each other have to band together to fight Brainiac, and what's going to happen if they lose, what's going to happen if they win, can they get along? Wonder Woman, by the way, is a real problem in this story. Like, Wonder Woman is still very solidly on, we have to stab every motherfucker all the time, every day.
Do you think they made her prominent like that because of the film coming out?
No, she's not very prominent, actually, in the story, but it's just her main character trait is, I want to kill everything that looks at me funny.
Oh.
She stabs many things. And, I mean, she's a warrior.
I was pleasantly surprised by the trailers for the film.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be a pretty aggressive
The reactions so far,
film.
I mean, I don't trust a lot of reactions because the press reactions just came out yesterday, but they're enthusiast press, if you know what I mean. Like, I'll wait and see what Variety has to say as well. But they're very positive, and many of the comments are like, I hated the other two DC Extended Universe films, and this one actually sent me out of the theater with something to enjoy.
It doesn't hurt that she's really easy on the eyes.
Well, I don't think she's a very good Wonder Woman casting.
I don't think. I think
she's too skinny.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying she's whoever. I don't even know who she is, but she's very attractive.
What, Gal Gadot?
Is that her name?
That's her name. Yeah, she's in the
whatever her name is. She's beautiful.
in the Fast and the Furious movies.
Okay.
Also, a member of the Israeli military. Could kill you.
Yeah.
With a bare hands.
Yeah.
No, I think, yeah, but like, if I want to see a pretty girl, I can see almost any movie Hollywood makes. I'm looking for a good movie.
No, I get it.
I mean, Chris Pine is also not hard on the eyes. Apparently, he's very good too.
Yeah.
See, I was skeptical about that movie because I didn't think her performance was particularly good in Batman vs Superman.
She's not a great actress, generally.
But the impressions so far have been she knocks it out of the park in this one.
Good.
So maybe it just was she had nothing to work with in that movie, which is true. She was still the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
But anyway.
How does the campaign work? How's it structured? Because
it's just like the recent Mortal Kombat and the last game, where it's just you get cutscenes, and then eventually a fight breaks out. Each chapter focuses on one character, but I'll get to. So it's like chapter 1, whatever, Batman, and like so you're going to play 3 or 4 fights as Batman until the next chapter runs through. So and there's a really nice seamless transition between cutscene and fight. And then the new thing in this, or maybe it was in the last Mortal Kombat. I don't remember if I played the last Mortal Kombat for very long.
So for that whole chapter, you fight as Batman.
Right, but what I'm saying is there's some chapters where there's 2 characters, and you pick which one to fight as in each fight.
Gotcha.
And then depending on which one you use most, I think, you get different bonuses unlocked at the end of each one. And there's actually a trophy and some special final chapter for going through the game a second time and picking the other stuff you didn't pick this time.
So does it change drastically if you choose another character?
No, it's just usually a different fight sometimes against a different opponent, but I think it's usually the same opponent.
Okay.
And then I believe at the very end there's one final choice, and I think that makes the difference in what the ending is.
All right. Did you finish the campaign?
Yeah.
Do you play as every single character on the roster by the time you get
No.
to the end of it? You don't.
You play, I'd say, about half.
Any noteworthy exclusions that you were kind of pissed off you didn't get to?
No,
experience?
I mean, you don't play as a lot of the villains. That's
Okay.
basically like the villains
That
are kind of, it's you versus the villains, and then some of the previous villains are on the side of the good guys now, like Harley Quinn. But generally, you're playing as the good guys.
How long did it take you to finish the campaign?
I'm gonna say it was about 5-6 hours.
Ooh, not much.
It's pretty good for a fighting game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably the longest fighting game campaign I've ever played, and also once I had the combos down with some of these guys, it was pretty easy.
Is there a difficulty setting for the campaign?
I didn't see one. There might be one, but I didn't notice one.
Yeah.
I mean, some stuff. The fight against Brainiac is hard because he does something like double or triple damage and takes half damage. So you basically got to and the game. It's a NetherRealm game, so damage adds up real fast. I figured out one combo with Batman that's like 55% damage.
Oh wow!
How
many hits?
10 or 11.
Yeah.
And it's not like something that you can do anytime, but if you can get it off, you're doing more damage than most super moves.
Yeah.
Which are, super moves are back, crazy. Basically, they're back with the
What
things
about all the environmental stuff? Is that
environmental stuff's still in? There's tons of stuff that no one would live through in this game.
Yeah. Well, they're superheroes.
No, Batman's just a dude.
Yeah, you're right.
there was a scene where Supergirl gets in a conflict with some guys, and Nightwing tries to stop her, and I'm like, bro,
You're just some dude.
You're a guy with a stick. I don't think you're gonna win this one. But it's pretty good. They have a lot of the old voices from the '90s DC animated stuff. They have Kevin Conroy's Batman. They have a guy I can't remember but he was the voice of Superman in those. He's back.
Does Hamill play Joker?
No.
Wow.
Joker. Well, Hamill doesn't do the Joker much anymore. Hamill is because it's hard on his throat.
Yeah.
So he's played by. I thought it was Troy Baker because it does sound a lot like him. I thought it might have been Troy doing his Joker impression from Arkham Origins, but it's actually Richard Epcar, who is better known to anime fans as Batou from Ghost in the Shell, and would be known for Persona 5 fans as the Principal.
Oh boy.
Sounds nothing like him.
Not exactly a memorable performance in Persona 5.
No, but who was, really?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's a really good voice cast, and they do a good job. It feels like one of the good DC animated movies.
Yeah.
I would say it's similar to that. It's like if they made a DC animated movie out of Injustice, except sometimes you fight guys in gameplay. So the fighting is not tremendously interesting compared to the multiverse because there's no. I don't think there's any extra special effects or things you're specifically fighting against or anything. It's just straight up fights.
Right.
But it's just it's a decent story. And
you enjoyed it all the way through.
Yeah. I actually played it a little bit longer than I intended to a couple times because I want to see what happened next.
Good. That's a good sign.
Good. The one weird thing about it is NetherRealm is not the greatest animation house in the world.
Yeah.
Or greatest character. I mean, these are probably the best character models they've ever made and some of the best animation they've ever done, but that doesn't mean I'm calling it good.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the art that they use for a lot of the kind of snap-on components for costumes.
Well, I'm more thinking about
how
they move and their faces, because this is the other thing is the faces.
I mean, you're assuming they're mocapping, right? I mean,
yeah, but I think
kind of hang that on the actors.
Something's not translating because the faces in the cutscenes are actually pretty good, but when they transition to the gameplay models, something goes real wrong in some of them. Especially the women, the female characters, just their faces in the game look weird.
Huh.
And the faces in the cutscenes look pretty normal. Great. These look fine.
Yeah.
But when you can even see it, especially because you can notice when it transitions to gameplay during the story.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, they look great.
That's really incredible.
Somebody else is. I mean, I don't know if they got blurs. I didn't pay attention to the credits. But there's something that when it transitions to gameplay, you can tell because it switches to 60 frames a second.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Catwoman especially, is oh my god, what happened? See, like I don't know what's happening there. Maybe it's just the fact that these cutscenes can have a lot more detail because they're pre-rendered. They might be in engine, but like rendered the way like Uncharted does, where like they render it in engine, but it takes like days to do a full scene.
Yeah.
So I find that a little. I mean, they are getting better. It is improving, but I still don't think it's up to maybe par, especially these because like switching through the character selection screen at the beginning when I first started the game, I was like, oh, like, and my girlfriend was just like, oh my god, don't pick Catwoman, don't pick like. And there's a Catwoman. One of her head loot pieces is a full mask, and I'm really hoping to get that drop at some point. But there's like they all like anyone who isn't like a monster tends to look a little weird in the face to me.
Human faces are one of the hardest things to replicate in games.
Like even like Superman, I think looks strange in certain angles, and like I mean it's not a huge deal because in gameplay they're pretty far away.
Yeah,
but it's just it was jarring to me how different the faces looked from the cutscenes to the gameplay.
I think that's a sign of how good the game is, though. Is that that's sort of one of the things that you're pointing at as one of its deficiencies.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot else go. Although, what was it? No, it's just, the only other real complaint I have is that the Joker is more the Suicide Squad movie Joker and not the real Joker. Because the Joker's dead in this continuity. Yeah. So the Joker in this is kind of treated as a hallucination or a dream sequence or Scarecrow's fear gas or whatever. Because and it's actually pretty good where similar to NetherRealm's other games, at the beginning of the fight, the two fighters exchange some pleasantries back. There's like 3 lines back and forth, and some of it's real specific to the characters, and that's nice. There was a good one. And also when they do the clash thing, which I find the clash mechanic to be fairly useless, but like the computer does it constantly. Yeah. But there was a great one where there was like I think it was like one of the villains. I think it might have been Atrocitus or something. Like basically, I was Batman, and the clash happened, and the enemy's like it's like you're nothing but a little man in a fancy suit or something, and Batman just goes, "I'm Batman."
That's pretty good.
Because like some of it's character specific and some of it is just random, and they'll just sort of piece voice clips together, and sometimes it's kind of funny.
They don't make a ton of sense. How about the competitive stuff? Isn't there like an esports thing baked into the game?
If there is, I didn't notice it.
I thought there was. Maybe not.
There's like I haven't dabbled too much with the online stuff. There's ranked, there's player, there's private. That's the standard, the standard array. It took me oddly long to get into matches, which is one reason I haven't played online too much. Is like I'm talking like sitting there for like a minute.
Wow. Maybe the matchmaking's actually good. Maybe it's taking its time.
I mean, I don't feel like I've gotten matched with people that were like crazy different from my like higher or lower than my skill level, for the most part.
How's lag?
Not
really important, obviously, in fighting games.
It's not really that noticeable. I mean, it's I'd say it's on par with any other major fighting game right now. At least I don't feel like I ever lost because of it.
Well, Street Fighter V is completely rewriting its netcode.
Is it?
Right now, yeah. Yeah, they're going to launch another beta just to work on the netcode.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess I got to admire their dedication.
Yeah, for sure. They haven't given up in spite of a lot of struggles that they've had with that game.
Now just do Marvel vs. Capcom right the first time.
Yeah,
maybe you'll save yourself some effort.
Yep. So the big question everybody has, obviously you have hardcore fighting game fans who are going to buy every fighting game. But for most people, what they do is they buy 1 or 2 fighting games for their console, and they kind of stick with that for a long time. So when you're looking at Injustice 2 and you're kind of placing it in that pantheon or totem pole, if you will, of fighting games, where does it fall? Is this the game that people should buy, or should they buy Street Fighter V? Should they wait for Tekken 7? King of Fighters 14?
Probably not King of Fighters 14.
Yeah,
I mean, I love
a long shot.
I love King of Fighters, but it's a pretty standard package. I think if you're more into if you're gonna not be playing this online, if you're not here to be competitive on like the online or tournament scene, like I can't think of another fighting game that has more offline single player content than this game. Like
other than the first Injustice,
I mean, this is way more though. The multiverse thing is basically never ending, and it doesn't really get old to me. And all the leveling up and all the loot stuff, there's a lot to keep you busy here. And I feel like if you enjoy playing it, you're going to keep playing it for quite some time, even by yourself, because there's so much to keep doing. So I think if you like the first one, or you like DC, or you like Mortal Kombat, even, I mean, it's very similar to Mortal Kombat in most respects. Sub-Zero is even going to be in the first wave of characters they release.
Seems a little odd to me.
Well, Scorpion was in the last one.
I know, but
I mean, when the premise of the multiverse thing is like anyone can come from any alternate world.
Yeah, I guess
that's your out for that. Anybody can show up. I mean, you're probably not going to get like Freddy Krueger or something like in Mortal Kombat, but I think we might see some fun guest characters. I can't think of another fighting game that's more to do for a single player, which is, I think, a big point in its favor, because you can't always have somebody else over to play with.
Would you recommend it over Street Fighter V? Because Street Fighter V is reviewed way lower, but it's been on the market for a while. It's had a lot of patches, a lot of improvements.
I mean, I think Street Fighter V is probably a better fighting game from a pure fighting game
perspective, yeah.
But there's a lot more to do and see in this game than Street Fighter V will ever have. So if you're, like I said, if you're not, if you don't want to get in on the competitive scene, I think Injustice 2 is a better buy than Street Fighter V at this point.
Wow. That's a bold statement from a huge Street Fighter fan.
Yeah, I'm a huge Street Fighter fan.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's just, while we're all...
It is what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a much more single-player focused game, and it's there to give you more stuff to do for your $60. And also, even though it does have a microtransaction system in it, at no point have I felt any compulsion to use it.
Oh, wow. That's great. So you feel like the way they've worked with the loot boxes and everything, it's not pay to win?
Not at all. No.
It's not even
pay to play. It's
right.
like, I mean, you can buy a lot more if you want, but I mean, when I turned it off last night, I think I had like 15 of each type of loot box except for Platinum and Diamond.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're playing multiverse, you're getting bronze, silver, and gold boxes thrown at you every 5 minutes. I mean, it's constant. The only thing holding you back, and they even have an option where that you can set in the I think it's defaulted to on, but there's an option you can use that makes it more likely for loot boxes and loot stuff to drop that's for the character you're using currently, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, for sure. Certainly incentivize you to keep on going.
Yeah, because at a certain point, you're out. You just want to power up the guy you're playing. Yeah. And it certainly helped. I mean, my Batman, because I focused on Batman for the first until I got him to 20.
Yeah.
And by the end of that, I had some real good stuff for him. It does a good job of that. And the other thing, of course, is that the loot boxes that pop up, they are geared to the level you are. Like, they're already basically determined, like Overwatch. They're geared to what's in them is what's in them, and you're set. Like, there's no reason to save them. You don't have to wait until you're a higher level to use them later, because they're matched to the level you were when you got them. So it seems like they thought it out pretty well. And a matter of fact, last night I was trying to finish a multiverse event, and the timer was running out. So I started the last event in it with I think it was like 40 seconds left in the event. And so it took me like 5 minutes to play the whole thing, and I still got everything.
So as long as you start the event before the deadline.
And I think a developer that had not thought it out as well, like in the middle of the second match, would have been like, "Oh, the time's up. You're sorry, we're gonna kick you out." But it feels like it's there for you to have a good time. Like, the game is trying to entertain you more than set up a stone wall and say you can't come in unless you're good enough.
Hyperbole check. Best fighter of this console generation?
Best total package.
Okay.
I would say. I still think Street Fighter V is a great game.
Yeah.
It's just everything around it
kind of
not
as feature rich.
Yeah, it's not as feature rich, and also like you say, they're still making it.
Yeah,
to some degree.
They're still trying to fix it. Really.
This one, I mean, Injustice 2 feels very solid. I think there's I still don't like fighting the big guys. They do too much damage too fast, especially when it's not so bad online, but when the computer is playing, sometimes you get that fighting game thing where it's like, nope, I know what you're going to do already, and I'm going to counter it right now, and that's annoying.
Did you ever lose to the computer?
Yeah, a couple times.
Oh, good. Okay.
Not in the story. A couple times in the story mode, mainly Brainiac, because he does so much damage.
Yeah.
And then some of the multiverse stuff is actually really challenging because of the extra effects,
special conditions and everything.
Yeah, and the first time I did the acid rain condition, I didn't realize what was happening,
right. Yeah.
so I was just standing there.
You're and why am I dying?
At some point, I just fell over dead, and I'm like, why is that? There is a weird thing where a little nitpick things, because when you beat a guy, a lot of times they do that kind of NetherRealm thing where they fall and they land and then they get up and then they kneel down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that just to show, like, it's a DC mandate, like, that they're not dead? Or like,
maybe.
But it looks really weird because it's like, fall down, roll a few times, boom, you're dead. Oh, get up, lay down. It just feels awkward. And then, like, stuff like that when you win a round, your character will do some kind of, like, pose or something. Yeah. One of Batman's is he throws a smoke bomb down and then drops down from the ceiling exactly where he was before. And I'm like, what is that supposed to be? Like, how? I don't. Like, I think that's supposed to be like if you're too close, he does that and then drops at a proper distance to start a round in. Yeah. But he never does that. He just, poof, I'm in the same place now. It's just like, okay, sure.
Well, it sounds like wholeheartedly recommending it for even maybe people who are casual fighting game fans.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like super excited about this game.
Nobody was.
If I was not doing this show, I probably would have waited.
I think a lot of people were kind of tracking that way.
And in fact, I had to go through some hoops to get this because I had it pre-ordered at GameStop, and I went there to pick it up, and they didn't have it. They didn't have my copy.
They had sold out all of them.
They said that a few of the because I got the Ultimate Edition, and they said that they were about half their shipment was still on the way, and they could get it to me later in the week. And I'm like, well, I got to play it for this thing on Friday, so I just canceled it and bought it online.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Because I mainly wanted the pre-order.
Wait, did you still get the right edition that you wanted?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I pre-ordered a GameStop because you got Darkside free.
Right.
And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to pay the $5 for Darkside if I want Darkside later. And because Darkside is not part of the story or anything like that. He's just a bonus because he was the boss from the last game.
Right.
But it was just not worth driving all the way back to West Hollywood for.
Yep.
So that was...
Which mileage-wise is like 2 miles.
Right.
In real life, it's like an hour drive.
Yeah. Like, in terms of gas spent, it's probably cheaper to just buy Darkside.
No, you're right. You'll save the $5. Yeah. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about... We keep talking about PlayStation VR and, what is the next big game for PlayStation VR that could potentially put it over the top? And put it over by saying put it over the top, I'm not saying, like, make it a success, because it seems to be a success.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be at least within success margins.
It's sold, if you combine Vive and Rift together, PlayStation VR has sold 3 times those combined. So at least if you're looking at it relatively speaking to other HMDs, it is a success. But every time a big game or a full-featured game is on the horizon for PlayStation VR, we always wonder if it's going to be the one that really, like, skyrockets it. We wondered if Resident Evil 7 Biohazard was going to be that game. It really wasn't, although it certainly didn't hurt. I think I saw the numbers were 200,000 people were playing, of those sold in the U.S., 200,000 of those were playing it on PlayStation VR. To me, that's a pretty good attach rate for PlayStation VR, considering that RE7 did not sell great in the first place. But it still didn't sort of send PlayStation VR into this like must-have, must-buy category. The next game, and this is an exclusive just for PlayStation VR, published by Sony, is Farpoint, a game that comes with a light gun peripheral.
Or can.
So you can buy it separately without the peripheral. I was under the impression you had to buy the peripheral.
No, as a matter of fact, the bundle with the peripheral is gone.
Really?
And I had to. It was sold out everywhere because I didn't realize it was coming out this week until like last week. So I started looking. I'm like, oh, I just got gone on Amazon, gone on Best Buy, gone on Target, gone at Walmart, everywhere. And I went into. It was still available on GameStop's site, and so I went to the GameStop. Same time I went to get Injustice, I said, "Are you still taking pre-orders on this because it doesn't come out for like 4 days?"
Yeah.
They're like, "No, we're out of our allocation. We don't know if there's going to be another shipment." Da, da, da. So I'm like, "Oh," because it was on the website. And they're like, "Well, if it's on the website, you should go get it." So I went back and I ordered it on the website, and they shipped it and it showed up. But this thing was hard to find. Like, and I actually was out the morning of its release on Tuesday, and I looked at a couple of stores, and they had none of them. They had the individual game, but they did not have the bundle with the gun.
Now, before we start talking about the gun, do you know how you would play this game without the gun? Do you use the Move controller as a pointer, or?
Probably. I would think that's how it works. Or maybe you'd have to use, I don't know how you do it without analog sticks.
Right.
It might just be a standard
just play
shooter.
It like
that
a
way.
shooter.
I don't know. I didn't try it that way. But I know you can get it separate. And then I know that they're also, I think, going to sell there's a separate entry on one of the sites I saw for the gun alone. My question was like holding the thing when I opened it was like, are you ever going to be used for anything else ever again?
Well, I mean, it will, because I'm guessing at this point, probably 35% of VR games are first-person shooters, it seems like.
Sort of. This one is weird in the sense it's a melding of first-person shooter and walking simulator.
Yeah, that's what I've kind of gathered. I have not played it at all. Matt has been playing it, but
I only started to play it because it's been a very busy week. But I played it for about an hour and a half last night, very late. I mean, it's been like 12 hours. So very fresh in the mind,
which is good.
It's like. It is probably not going to set the world on fire because, and part of this might be, maybe I would be more impressed if I hadn't done as much room scale Vive stuff as I have. There is a really good feeling and sense of having a thing in your hand, like when you look down and see the gun. Does
it track it well? So if you move the gun in your hands, it moves it in the game.
Yes.
That's cool.
The tracking's a little shaky. It's a little jumpy in places.
Even Vive and Rift are that way, though.
Vive is not like that.
I've seen a lot of gameplay footage of people where you look at like their hands or whatever.
Well,
and
then their
shaky
thing is not set up right.
Oh, really?
Because I have played a lot of Vive stuff, and I've never seen
jitter.
it do that. I've never seen jitter on it. Maybe on like games that aren't finished yet.
Well, it could be a lot of times too. The people that are playing these games are setting up quickly, and they're probably not calibrating everything correctly. And
something like that. I mean, I've never seen something that like bad like that. I mean, whereas like PlayStation VR, it's just
PlayStation
the way it works.
VR, it's a continual problem.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's playable. It's like it's more like it's jittery when you're kind of moving the gun around in your hand. When you're actually shooting with it, it's rock solid.
Okay.
Like there's no. I have never felt like I missed something when I should have hit it. And the other thing, of course, is it actually does have the gun has laser sights.
Yeah.
So you look down the barrel and you get like the little
cool.
The little like laser sight thing there as a reticle, and then you also have like a little tracker for the rockets the gun fires. So it's pretty cool, and I'm playing on Pro, so everything's pretty sharp. As VR things go.
Upper echelon of PlayStation VR games visually. It looks really barren to me.
In ways, like the animation is good, the characters are good, the environments are boring.
Okay.
To the point that one of the characters actually complains about it.
Oh, really?
At one point in the game, like she's like walking.
Well, I mean, you can see it here. It's just like this wasteland.
I'm a big you can also see the aiming,
the jittery,
the jitter, but you also see the reticle there through the sight.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, like I'm a big junkie for Alien Planet VR. So, it's like if you can put me on another world and make me feel like it's another world, like I'll forgive you a lot of stuff. But so far, this is just like a trip through the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple of cool places, and like the lava here is blue because it's hotter,
right?
I guess. And like there's one point where you go through like a cave, and there's like glowing like fungus and stuff, and that's neat. But for the most part, you're kind of walking down rocky canyons. At one point, the character. It should be called Farpoint, a day late and a dollar short, because you start you're like picking up two scientists from a research outpost near this like spatial anomaly that I think it looks like it was near Jupiter or maybe Europa or one of those moons, and you're flying like a shuttle in, which should be more impressive than it is, but I've seen so much space stuff that it's just it's fine. And they come to get on your shuttle, and right as they leave the space station, the anomaly goes crazy and sucks the space station and everything into it. And your ship gets hit by debris, you eject, and land on this planet. And so you're trying to find the two scientists because you find evidence that they're still alive.
Got ya.
And that's where the walking simulator thing comes in, is because
you can see in this footage, it's
you're tracking holograms of them, like recordings that your suit computer is sort of piecing together. So you'll come across like a blue hologram of them, and you use a scanner thing, which is real close to the button that fires grenades. I've killed myself a couple times by hitting the wrong button to scan a hologram and instead of blowing
fires
myself
a grenade.
up.
Yeah.
You scan the hologram and it plays a little cutscene. So basically, you're getting breadcrumbs of the story as you walk down a very, very, very linear path, occasionally shooting spiders.
Yeah, I hate games where you're just shooting like these little crab-like creatures over and over.
Yeah, well, so far it's been little spider, bigger spider, and really big spider. And I just ran into a medium spider, a new spider. The trophies have like trophies for like headshots and sniping and stuff. So I assume at some point you run into humanoids of some kind. But it's been an hour and a half, and I'm real tired of shooting tiny little head crab wannabes.
Yeah.
Although that is one of the only things that like really the VR really works in is the little head crab guys jump at you, and every time they jump at you, I duck.
You duck
because it's, I mean, the mouth's coming right at you.
Now the game isn't tracking that, right? It's not like full room VR. Yeah.
No. As a matter of fact, I played it standing up, but I think next time I will probably sit down.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like you probably should play it standing up, but like it doesn't do you any good, and my feet got sore after a while, and I kept
all that standing,
and I kept turning like away, like because you're constantly so it's sort of like Robinson in the sense like so the gun. I should have brought the gun.
Yeah,
the gun on the front of the gun, inside front of the handle, there's one analog stick, and on the back of the gun there's the right analog stick. So you move with this stick. And there's an option to not be able to turn at all in the game, but I set it to smooth turn, so I can. So basically, it's controlling.
This is my next question. I know you don't get sick from VR, but do you think people might?
You wouldn't last 10 minutes.
Really?
No.
Wow.
No. In fact, when I started to play it at the very beginning, I was like, "Whoa!" This is
even you felt a little weird.
It was just like getting used to the motion of it was a little woo for a second. And after like 5 minutes, I was fine. But like,
I would be perfect.
That was the first thing I thought. I'm like, Shane couldn't play this for more than like 10 minutes.
Oh wow.
So I played for like an hour and a half, and was fine.
Do you want to keep playing after the hour and a half?
Yeah, I'll probably go back and try it again. I mean, here's the thing: it's a little. I mean, Destiny comes into play a little bit here, where it's like walking places is sort of dull, and I am like 99% sure I know what the twist is.
Right.
Even though the two highly trained PhDs apparently can't put this one together, despite their constant like hint dialogue about it.
Yeah.
But the actual shooting is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Like because
it's accurate, right?
It's very accurate. It feels good. Like the gun has vibration, so it rumble. It feels.
Do you charge it or does it take batteries?
You charge it.
Oh, good.
So it had no batteries when I got it out of the box last night. So I'm just like, ow.
It doesn't come with the batteries?
No, it just didn't have any charge.
Oh, wow.
It had like 1 bar charge.
Oh,
it was
wow.
almost completely dead. So
That's rare.
So I had to plug it into the USB on my computer while I played it, and it kept warning me. It's like, you'll have a better experience if you unplug the USB cable. I'm like, no, I won't, because it doesn't work without the USB cable right now. It needs to charge.
Yeah, it's really odd for a peripheral to come uncharged.
Yeah, usually there's a pretty good charge in most of those things. But I plugged it in, and it had 1 bar, and it started to flash like it's about to run out like as soon as I started to play. So I plugged it. I didn't have a problem with it. The cord was long enough that I never noticed it.
Yeah.
But in terms of like just accuracy and making it feel like you have a gun in your hand, it's I mean, not a real gun, but it's like you definitely feel like you've got a thing you're holding, and it matches up well enough in the game that like it's a pretty convincing illusion, and you can look down and see your body and your hands and everything. And actually, my favorite thing might be that to switch weapons, you put it back behind your shoulder.
Oh.
Like you lift it behind your shoulder and pull it back, and you pull back with it the next weapon.
That's cool.
So right now I only have a shotgun and the machine gun you start with and a shotgun. But the shotgun's actually I'm not a shotgun fan usually in games, but the shotgun's pretty fun.
Yeah.
There's no ammo. There's no limited ammo.
So it's like an energy weapon.
No.
No?
I mean they fire bullets, but it's just
do.
never really explained how.
Oh.
Like there's a limiter on each one, but it's like the machine gun can overheat, sort of Mass Effect 1 style, and then the shotgun can hold I think it's either 8 or 10 shots, and then you have to press the X button to reload it, and it has to reload over time. But the way it reloads is like these little vents on the side of the gun. Looks like they suck material in. I think they nano-construct bullets inside the gun out of like particles in the air or something.
Yeah.
But it's basically like, and so each one also has an explosive thing. So the
alt fire.
So the machine gun fires rockets you can guide with your controller, and the shotgun fires grenades that are either timer or direct hit thing. And it's very accurate. It feels good when you're doing it. It's just the getting to each major fight set piece is kind of a pain. I've died a few times because every once in a while you just get overwhelmed by all the little things jumping at you.
Yeah.
But frame
rate's good?
Yeah, I haven't noticed any performance problems. No, not that I can think of. I mean, there's been a couple of a little jerkiness in the loading of some of the cutscenes.
Understandable.
But no, I haven't had any performance issues.
How much?
I am on a Pro, though. So
Right. How much does the bundle with the controller cost?
$79.
Ooh.
So
That's spendy.
yeah, I mean, well, what is it, $20 for the controller there?
Yeah, I guess if you think that this is worth
If you think it's worth
a full
$60,
game, which I would argue maybe it's not.
Probably not. I mean, there is a co-op mode, which I haven't tried. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe that one person plays on the controller on the TV screen or something. I don't know.
But no competitive multiplayer?
I don't think so. So there was a story mode, a co-op mode, and a challenge mode. I didn't try the challenge mode.
I'm assuming that's just a shooting gallery, probably
like waves of whatever.
timed or whatever. Yeah, or a horde mode type of thing.
But I mean, you can see they're trying. Like, you know, the spider enemy, the head crab guys jump at you, and you know they kind of swarm you. They don't have a lot of self-preservation instincts. There's a scene on a cliff, and they just are jumping at you, and if they miss you, they just fall into the abyss. It's like, I don't think that. Then like you run into these like big bloated guys who can shoot acid blobs, and you shoot the blobs out of the air. One nice thing is that they do hurt the other enemies. If they like, they'll knock them away or something. Yeah. And then like there's big guys that charge you, and like those guys are. I gotta say, they did a very nice bit of research on the anatomical work on this. Like, they look very real in terms of how the legs connect up, and they look creepy and strange, and like they look like big spiders,
like believable, like they can actually exist.
I think so. And one nice thing, so the bodies disappear pretty quick, but you know they lay there for a couple of seconds, and there's no clipping on them. You can walk through them just to avoid getting caught on things. But I like that because you walk through something in VR, you can see inside of it.
Right.
On the big guys, like there's big guys that are about like 8 feet tall and like 10 feet wide, and you kill them and they fall over. But a couple times I've ended up walking through them, and they're completely textured on the inside.
Wait, they're anatomically rendered on the inside?
Inside, like you can see the inside of their body on the underside of the skin. So because they knew you'd be walking through them at some point, and so you can see what they look like inside their own body. And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like that's a nice. Somebody was like, oh, it looks terrible when you walk through a guy and you just see polygons and stuff. So we decided to make it look a little better, and I appreciated that.
So would you recommend this for someone who has PlayStation VR, is just kind of sitting there collecting dust, because mine is?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it's for, I think. I am more waiting for Star Trek Bridge Crew, which is
coming soon,
supposedly next week or something, 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're looking for a more action-oriented thing, like it plays well. I don't know if you want to spend the money.
$80 is a lot.
But
is the controller worth spending the extra money for?
If they use it for more things in the future,
sure.
I mean, and like little thing, like look, like if you like did like a VR version of like Umbrella Chronicles, like the light gun Resident Evil game, I'd buy that in a second. Like that would be really cool. Or like even if it was just like, I don't know, like even if it was just like a VR version, or you don't even need VR. You could just have it be a point blank.
Right.
Like just you do a port of point blank, use it for non-VR stuff. I'd be into that too. Like I like light gun stuff, and light gun stuff is kind of the one of the genres that's sort of fallen into obscurity because
since the Wii, the Wii was kind of like the last platform that kept it alive.
Yeah, I mean, would I play an HD remaster of like House of the Dead Overkill? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I love that game.
Maybe they'll come back with Switch.
Yeah.
Kind of makes too much sense to port a lot of those Wii light gun games to Switch.
Yeah, but it's just I feel like there's some cheap and dirty money to be made with that peripheral if like Capcom and Sega are willing to support it, maybe. Yeah. Look, I mean, I love I miss Point Blank. I bought that stupid GunCon thing just for Point Blank back on the PS1.
Yeah.
So Namco,
get on it.
Get on it.
Yeah, they used to be the kings of light gun games.
Yeah, Namco. I mean, use that. The gun peripheral for this and like do like a Namco light gun greatest hits. I'd buy that in a heartbeat.
I think a lot of people would.
A little Time Crisis action. What
Well,
was that one with the bigger machine guns? I can't remember. It's in every Dave and Buster's in the country.
I can't remember.
Or even like, and Sega has a bunch of them. I'd love. I mean, I'm sure the license is long expired, but I'd love to play that Alien 3 game.
Oh yeah, I
remember that with the giant like pulse rifle and stuff. So
We'll see.
I mean, again, right now it's like, well, I don't, but again, I have to admit, I did kind of jump in faster than I thought I would when I saw how scarce it was getting.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be left out.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, finally something to play, because it is a real game.
Right.
That's the thing.
Which are rare. I mean, there's like 4 now at this point for PlayStation VR.
Yeah, but it's still like pretty much more than Vive's got.
Yeah.
And Vive, even the full-fledged games on Vive tend to be sort of like, here's a tech demo with a lot of levels.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like a fully fledged.
It's got a story and cinematics.
Production. And you know, it's not, you know, if it wasn't in VR, it would be pretty blah, but like... Because
Resident Evil 7 doesn't even work yet on Vive or Oculus, right?
I think it does work on Vive.
Does it?
But I don't know for sure. I feel like, I don't know.
I thought maybe the VR functionality of that was coming like way later, but
maybe it is.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know, because I could not possibly care less.
Yeah,
so, like, if I was going to play Resident Evil 7 in VR, I'd play it on PSVR, just because it's more convenient.
Yeah.
I mean, I played. Like, I didn't want to put my contacts in, so I played the whole hour and a half of Farpoint with my glasses on in the PlayStation VR, and it was fine. It was you know, once you get it set up so like enough airflow is coming in that everything's not fogging up, like it's totally comfortable and you don't notice it, which is like not how the Vive works.
Yeah.
Although I saw there's a company that now makes you can get prescription lenses put in these things. They make prescription lenses on a thing that you can snap onto the Vive like headset.
Yeah,
inside.
I saw that. They were announced like this week or
I must have seen it through Sifted actually. But so I'm like, and I've considered that, but then I went through and I did like the piece your thing together. It's like $300.
It is, yeah. It's crazy. It'll come down though. That's just early adopter tax, basically.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's like, I would buy that if it was a reasonable amount of money.
I think what I'm seeing with PlayStation VR is that Sony is following its strategy that it's followed since the PlayStation 2 era. It doesn't necessarily have that one like killer app, and even I could even argue with the PlayStation 3 minus some of the Uncharted and the Naughty Dog stuff. But it just slowly builds this catalog of games that are pretty darn good. And eventually it becomes this overwhelming catalog and people kind of jump on board. And it kind of seems that it's replicating that strategy with PlayStation VR, which makes sense. I mean, it's worked for
that should be their slogan, PlayStation. Pretty darn good.
Yeah. It actually makes a lot of sense. So, all right, thanks for that report. We're going to move on and talk next about The Surge. This is a game that I have been playing. I can finally get on the conversation and share my opinion on some stuff. A lot of people have been describing this as Dark Souls with robots or a robotic Dark Souls. After having played it now, and you've played it as well, do you agree with that?
Yes.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it is literally Dark Souls with sci-fi elements in a lot of ways.
I mean,
there's minor differences, but like, the template they're drawing from is absolutely Dark Souls. They're taking a lot of trappings from other games. Like, I mean, there's also, like, certainly visually and aesthetically, there's a fair amount of Dead Space in here.
This compares to a ton of games, I think. It's not just the visuals for Dead Space, though, either. It's also the whole dismemberment mechanic, where you can change the orientation of your weapon to take off arms or take off heads. And it also reminds me a little bit of Eternal Darkness in that way. The first time, like, I targeted someone's head and it turned blue, I was like, that's like Eternal Darkness. Like, really the first game to kind of make that, at least the first big budget game or high-profile release to kind of make dismemberment a big part of its gameplay systems.
Yeah, I remember when that, and at the time, I was like, oh, this is like Die by the Sword.
Yeah, right, yeah. But, you know, that was the first game that would kind of hit the masses that kind of had that element in it. I don't know. The combat to me is a lot faster in this than it is in Dark Souls. Even more than Bloodborne.
It is faster. I don't know if it's faster than Bloodborne. Bloodborne can get
it felt like it to me.
The thing I will say about this combat is, it's much less defensive-oriented, which is, again, why it reminds me of Bloodborne, because Bloodborne is more about countering than defense.
Yep.
And the individual enemies are more dangerous, for the most part. Dark Souls and Bloodborne have a lot of, like, basically, I guess you'd call them trash mobs,
fodder,
whatever.
File, yeah.
And you can still run by the guys in this game, but the thing is, if you stop to fight the guys in The Surge, even the lowliest dude can kill you in like 3 hits. Yeah,
the first enemy in the game, those floating drones killed me.
Yeah, they're no joke. And it took me. I didn't die until I got to the first boss, which I did by accident, I might add, because I walked into the boss room thinking it was a room I'd already been in, because everything in this game looks the same.
It does, yeah.
And then I was like, oh my god! So actually, it was kind of a nice surprise. Like it was. It wasn't like it was like, oh wow, something to do.
Yeah.
But like, so yeah, it's very Dark. I mean, it's very, very Dark Souls. There's a little more individual control over how the combat unfolds, which I like. Like the targeting of the different body parts, like gives you a little bit of options. Like if you target an unarmored body part, you can kill them faster. But if you target an armored body part, you're going to get crafting gear or a blueprint.
Yeah.
Which is very important.
It is.
And
yeah. Scrap.
And I think it's fun. I think the combat's fun. I enjoy it. Certainly, I mean, this is by Deck 13, who made Lords of the Fallen, which was a thoroughly mediocre Dark Souls clone.
Yeah.
And this is way better than Lords of the Fallen. So they clearly learned a lot from their last game, and I think while it probably isn't quite on the level of a Dark Souls game in terms of kind of the detail stuff, and certainly the level design and the environments are not up to par.
Yeah.
But in terms of like actual like moment to moment combat, like there's moments where I'm like, I kind of like this better. Like,
yeah.
Because it's so satisfying to rip a guy's arm off or like and have kind of that extra visceral involvement in the one-on-one fights.
I'm surprised at I'm surprised at how good the game is.
I'm surprised you like it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I like it. I appreciate it, though.
Okay.
I mean, I have an appreciation for these games, even though they're not necessarily for me. I like the setting of Dark Souls way more.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole lore and the aesthetic behind that series, that resonates with me way more. Like, I don't look at this game and, like, I'm pissed off that I don't like it because I want to experience it like the Dark Souls games. Like, that, it pisses me off that I don't like to play the Souls games because I love everything else about it. This one thing I would say about it is very generic. Like, everything about it is just, like, generic action video game. There's nothing particularly... this plot is just very rote and something you've experienced in countless other games before.
And it's sort of like... I mean, we've fought a lot of kind of nondescript robots in our time, and there's a little bit of... I mean, he's wearing kind of that rig thing, but there is a little bit of halo to it.
Yeah.
It's just... By the nature of this medium... it's hard to do science fiction in a way that feels new, whereas like fantasy, you're sort of not restricted by anything, and like and you know, Dark Souls is not you know, an original aesthetic really. It draws from a lot of different things, but there's also not really anyone else doing that.
Right.
Whereas this, like, it's not too far off something like Binary Domain or any other kind of mid to near future. There's even a little bit of Red Faction.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was saying. This game literally has elements from so many other games in it.
Yeah.
There's all these moments where I'm like, well, that reminds me of this game, and this reminds me of this game. It's like they took it's like the studio or the team was like, I really like Eternal Darkness. The other guy's like, I really like Dead Space. And they're like, we all like Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And that they kind of built the game around that. But I think what's ultimately happened is you're taking these bits and pieces from all these other games, and I just don't think it all gels together to make a completely satisfying whole. It feels very rote and kind of by the numbers. But I will say,
I would agree with that just because there's a lot of... It's like, clearly you like the aesthetic of Dead Space, so you put it in your game.
Yeah.
But you don't really do anything with it.
Right.
It's like it's not there for a reason.
It's there,
because that's what we decided to make it look like.
Because people like us are going to sit later and say, it reminded me of Dead Space.
And people go, I like Dead Space.
Right, and it's like a trigger word.
Yeah,
someone's like, Dead Space? I love Dead Space. Oh, maybe I should look more closely at this game. And in that way, it's kind of a smart tactic.
Yeah.
But,
by the way, they should really look into naming their game something that is a little less generically Googleable.
Yeah.
It's like putting the Surge, and it's just like you're getting... I'm like, yes, I know everybody likes that
Surge
drink they don't make
you're
anymore.
Getting,
or you're getting fan sites for the soft drink.
Right.
It's just not... It's not search engine optimized, boys.
So we should maybe talk briefly about the story. So you play as a man who's paralyzed from the waist down. One thing I really liked was how the game starts. You're starting in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can ever remember controlling someone in a wheelchair in a video game. Can you?
I don't know. I guess maybe I can. Not like directly. Maybe there was a character in like
that was in a wheelchair
top-down game or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. But
so it starts off that way, and I'm like, oh,
yeah, and it's actually kind of a reveal
Yeah.
Like you don't know it until the train stops.
Yeah, because the camera is behind him, and he looks like he's just sitting in a seat, and when you're finally able to move, you roll away, and you're like, oh.
And I gotta say, like, they really did their research on the animation and the feel of it, because, like, I mean, the guy's arms and hands are very well, like, I mean, it looks very authentic.
Well, there's one part where he goes down a ramp.
Right, well, there...
And it doesn't actually, like, gain speed, and he doesn't try to slow it down.
Well, it's the future. There's magnets.
Oh, you're right. You're probably right, actually.
Yeah. But, so he's basically going because these rig things will let you walk, even if you have spinal injury or whatever.
Yep.
But it doesn't quite go, I think, the way he thinks, where you get strapped in, because these things are attached to you surgically.
Right.
And, or at least the harness that they attach to is attached to you surgically. And when he gets in the chair, it's like patient is sedated. Let's do that. And he's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And they drill everything into him while he's awake.
Into the back of his spine, by the way. Yeah.
And then
that was a terrifying scene. Actually,
yeah,
it really affected me.
Yeah. Well, I was like, all right. Dark Souls.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the pedigree is there. Even though everything's very well lit in that scene, it still felt kind of that kind of that sort of like uncaring universe version of horror that Dark Souls deals in. And then he wakes up in basically a scrap heap at a destroyed work site and doesn't know what happened.
Yeah.
And basically the impetus at the beginning is to figure out what happened.
He can walk, though.
He can walk. He's pretty excited about that. But everything else doesn't work. You have to go replace the power core, and sort of like you slowly sort of get your suit into like working order.
Yeah.
And the game sort of teaches you how the crafting works and how you equip things on the suit and how to deal with all the enemies.
There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff to keep track of. More so. I mean, Dark Souls has a lot of like crafting elements in the sense that like you got to pick up if you want to make this, you got to have this much. Titanite or whatever, but like this game, like you gotta these enemies don't just drop this stuff. You got to target their if you want
specific.
If you want a new leg blueprint, if that's one nice thing about it is like you see a guy wearing something you've never seen before. You're like, I want your arm, and like you just like whack that arm long enough, and do the finishing move. As long as you do the finishing move and you've done enough damage to that limb, it will drop a damaged version, which you can then use as a blueprint.
Yeah.
I
like that
cool
concept.
Yeah,
it's cool. Yeah,
it gives a little more player agency over kind of how you advance, and I felt very well equipped by the time I was moving on past the first boss.
It also makes you pay way more attention to the enemies.
Yeah,
in a lot of games, it's like especially in a game like this where the enemies are robots, it's like just another robot. But that's not how it works. Like a lot of these enemies have different appendages that are attached, and you start to really look closely at that to try to find maybe parts that you might want to include in your arsenal. I love that element of it, and that's, to me, is the one area where it really kind of stands out and stands on its own 2 feet.
And I appreciated that the first boss is a giant walker. Yeah. Basically a giant Ed 209 kind of thing. It's a close quarters fight because its gun blows up, because it's not very well maintained. It's very it's a shameful maintenance crew at this place. So basically it becomes kind of a close quarters fight, and it has 2 bars. There's a life bar, and then there's another bar that fills up as you hit it. And once that fills up, it does something new, and you have to figure out how to exploit that new thing to put it in a vulnerable position so you can actually do damage to the life bar. Yeah. Which is a little more involved than the usual sort of like, stand in a safe place and hack until you have to get away kind of thing that Dark Souls does. It was kind of because it was surprising to me. I was like, oh wow, I have to figure this, because I was like whacking at his heel and like, man, he's really not dying. He's life bar. So what's that other bar? It was sort of this like, it's like, oh, there's more to it here. And once you figure it out, it's real simple. Yep. But at first, it was kind of refreshing to see them sort of play with the format that way. Now it does have a stamina meter. Yes. Which is something fans of Souls will be very, very familiar with. Yes. Your bane. Yeah. But I think. I haven't timed it with a stopwatch. The stamina meter on this game recharges faster than any other Souls game I've ever played. I still found myself screwed a couple times, though. Yeah, you you can get a little far, because there's 3, that's the other interesting thing, there's life, there's stamina, and there's energy.
Yeah.
And energy is built up as you're attacking and landing attacks, and you have to pass, I think it's about the halfway point of the bar, to be able to do a finishing move.
Yep.
And eventually other abilities, because your upgrades are done through plugging things into augment slots. And eventually you'll get, like, early on you're using limited use health packs, like Estus flasks.
Yeah.
You're injecting, like, I think you have like 3 of them when you start, and they get replenished when you go to the equivalent of a bonfire, which is the repair station.
Yep.
But eventually you get these things where, like, you can recover health using energy.
Yeah.
But then that's another decision you have to make, because if you use the energy to heal, you're not going to have the energy to finish.
Yeah.
Do a finishing move.
So you deal with like Persona 5.
Yeah.
Like you
So
can
it's
use your
like,
SP to heal, but then it means you have left for combat.
So, but this is, it's a finite resource, but it's only a finite resource in a battle-to-battle thing, and like I thought that was an interesting mechanic. Like, there's a lot of interesting ideas in this game, and I give them credit for trying to think outside the Souls box.
Yeah.
I don't know if it all fully comes together properly, but like the core of the game is pretty solid.
Visuals. First thing I had to do was turn down the look sensitivity in this game. Did that give you a problem?
No.
Man, like turning the camera was way too fast for me by default.
And I'm playing on PC, and my only comment on that is this game performs like shit
on PC.
On PC, because I got my dual Titan X's, which don't matter because there's no SLI support so far, and I haven't been able. You can go into NVIDIA Inspector and mess with the bits and like that, but I haven't found a setting that doesn't cause horrendous geometry flicker. So I'm playing on the single one, and 1440p. I had to turn a bunch of stuff down because the thing is like it has like the shadows, and it's mainly the shadows and. I guess the lens flare stuff, like you can go way higher than the PlayStation 4 can, but it doesn't really get you anything because the anti-aliasing in this game is really bad anyway.
It is, yeah.
And like, it doesn't.
I think that's why it runs so well on PS4.
Maybe,
like I've been playing it on PS4 and it runs real well.
Because maxed out, not even fully maxed out, with the shadows on high, I was dropping like 40 frames a second in the opening area.
Wow.
And like, so I ended up dropping like shadows down to medium, and I think one other setting down to high. Which I shouldn't need to do for something that looks like this. Because it's still pretty jaggy and play. It's not a pretty game. It's fine. It looks fine, but it shouldn't be taxing the machine the way it does.
Definitely not the PC, without a doubt.
No. So maybe it'll have some optimization improvements later. It looks like the PlayStation 4 Pro might be the best option right now because it does try to run at 60. I think it has some drops here and there.
Yeah.
But it runs about on the same quality level as you would get out of most non-super high-end graphics cards.
Yeah. I'm playing on base PS4 and it runs fine. I've never had it like dip below like acceptable levels or anything.
Now, it's just a weird thing going on where like especially because it has like the V-Sync on the game, like has a thing where if it drops below a certain point, it drops the frame rate and locks it at 30 until it comes back up, and that's real weird.
Yeah.
So I ended up dropping settings low enough that it runs well. It's funny, the only 2 games I've had to drop settings for on my computer is this and Mafia 3. And it's like not the biggest graphical powerhouses in the world.
Yeah.
It's just, something's going on.
So would you recommend this for Dark Souls fans who just finished up the last of the Dark Souls 3 DLC and they're ready for something new?
Yeah, if the setting doesn't put you off, if you're not like, devoted to the idea of it.
And I think
fantasy. That's
the biggest negative the game has is its setting and its story aren't great.
It's not as boss driven as Dark Souls is. I think there's probably fewer bosses. I think there's fewer bosses. I read there was like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Which is way less. Although each of them is it tends to be a more involved fight.
Game also seems to be shorter than the typical Dark Souls game.
It feels like. I mean, I don't even know if I'm halfway through yet, but it does feel like it's not as much because the Dark Souls games are sprawling.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, the level design isn't the way it is in Dark Souls, where everything is kind of this spaghetti that is all tied together.
And it does have you'll open shortcuts back to the repair room, but it doesn't feel as in particular like Dark Souls 1, where you'll open a door and you're like, oh my god, I'm here again. And it all feels like it connects up well.
Right.
Everything's a little more
linear.
Yeah. So I would say if you're not put off by the setting, there's a lot of interesting things here, and it's kind of, I mean, it's not on the level of Dark Souls and Bloodborne, I wouldn't say, but like consider it like methadone to Dark Souls heroin.
Yeah.
And like it'll get you through.
Yeah.
You know,
it actually reminds me a good bit of Technomancer.
Yeah, like in terms
as far as like its level of quality compared to like the upper echelon games in its genre.
Yeah, that's not a bad comparison. It's like that
without the Eurojank though. This game does not have Eurojank.
No, it's not really any Eurojank, but it's that kind of like it's like that B-list like game in the genre you like, and it's not gonna Technomancer is no like Mass Effect.
Yeah.
But it'll do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
like a quick fix while you wait for the next good batch of your whatever it is you like to come in.
Like I said, it'll get you through a weekend.
Yeah. It'll get me through more than a weekend.
The dealer's out of town. It'll get you. Miyazaki's not here this week, so you're gonna have to take the stuff that's cut with detergent.
You have to go onto the street to get what you need.
But don't feel shame in that because we all have our needs. We all need to play the things we want to play.
Yeah, I mean, look, I am enjoying this more than Technomancer, to be honest. And that's a game that I ended up playing for, I don't know if you guys remember, but for like 60 some hours. The time I've spent with this, I enjoy more. It's definitely way more challenging, although Technomancer wasn't easy either. But I'm not finding the challenge to be as frustrating as the Souls games have been for me. Maybe it's because everything's...
That's interesting to me because when I played it, I was interested. I was thinking, like, oh, Shane might not like this because the individual enemies are so dangerous.
Yeah, they are. I think that part of it is, but honestly, I think what makes it easier for me to play and understand is just the verbiage it uses. It uses terminology and phrases that you read it once and you get it. Like, one of the things about, like, the Dark Souls and Bloodborne games is that they use this verbiage that has no connection to anything else. Like, they've renamed everything into these weird names, so you get it, and you're like, well, what the hell is that? I have no idea. In this game, it's like you pick up something or you get something like, oh, I know what that is. That gives me health, or that improves my my stamina meter, or whatever. So it's been easier for me to kind of get into it and just start playing instead of, like, scratching my head being like, okay, I got these 5 things with weird names, and I don't really know what any of them are. It's just I just make that mental connection more easy.
The other thing that's a big difference from Souls is that it lets you bank souls. Yeah. In this,
you still lose your tech scrap when you die. You have to go and pick it back up again.
Right, but you can when you get to a save point, like the repair station, you can bank what you're carrying,
and you don't have to worry about losing it then. Yeah, which I think, in my personal opinion, is a vast improvement.
Which is it, and the way they balance that is you have a multiplier. For the souls you get, the tech scrap you get from defeating enemies, and that multiplier continues to go up as long as you don't go back to a save point. So the risk reward that balances the ability to bank your souls is you'll get more souls the longer you stay away from the place where you can bank them. Yeah. Which I thought was
risk reward system. Yeah.
I'll tell you this much. People argue and talk about, like, easy mode for Dark Souls. Yeah. That might be it.
Yeah,
that might be all you need.
Yeah, you're right.
That might be all you need to do if you just have a mode where you can activate that, and, like, people who are experts at the game at Dark Souls will be able to abuse that into invincibility inside of an hour. Yeah. But, like, if that was the easy mode, I feel like that doesn't compromise the experience, but it does just sort of give you that extra step ladder. Yeah. That might be something. Again, I think Deck 13 came up with some good ideas in here.
Look, this studio is onto something here. I mean, this game may not sell exceptionally well, or maybe it will, who knows. But this studio's got some talent. Yeah,
and look,
I mean, it's really the aesthetic that's the issue here. It's not like the nuts and bolts of the game.
And it's Dark Souls is kind of From Software's thing. It's they're the ones who do it, and, like, no one else has really been able to duplicate it. Yeah. But if these guys keep going,
they'll get there.
They might, you might have a viable alternative here in some ways for people who don't, the Dark Souls doesn't click. Maybe these will click with you instead. And these are, again, I feel like if you play through the Surge and can kind of, like, get your head around how that works.
This is the first boss, by the way.
Yeah.
Who he's talking about.
You're going to. That's interesting because you see how it says health and threat analysis there? Yeah. On my game, it doesn't have that text.
This is from the beta.
The beta, okay.
Yeah.
Because in mine, and I haven't looked at video of the retail other than playing it, but it just has like a red bar, and then underneath it's like an orange bar.
Yeah.
And it doesn't explain what it is, which I thought was very Dark Soulsy.
Yeah, it is. It was like I was saying earlier about how I don't know what the hell a lot of the stuff is in the Souls franchise.
So it's I feel like they're onto something, and they can do it. I think and give them another game.
Yep.
And they might be in the same ballpark.
Yeah, seriously.
As From Software.
Now, how much would you recommend someone buy this game for?
Well, I bought it for like $35 off of like Green. I think it was Green Man Gaming.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the reasons I bought this instead of PC version instead of console, because console was like full price. And
right.
I think PC was actually only $50.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I would say buy it on PC if you can run it for a cheap price. Otherwise, I would maybe hold off until it's in the 40 range.
No, what I was going to say is that is exactly what I would recommend people paying for this game, $35. I think that's exactly what I would recommend paying for it. If you can get it on PC, if you have a rig that can run it, I'd buy it right now for that price if they can still find it. If you're a console player, I would definitely wait for probably a month or two to see if maybe it comes down a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think
the way things are going now, in 2 weeks it could be cheaper. So.
Yeah, you don't know. Like I don't think I would go full price on like $60 on it.
Unless you're really desperate. Unless you're the type of person who only plays these types of games, then I would bump it up the value up a little bit.
But for roughly half that money, I felt like this was a decent substitute.
For sure. Yeah. We're going to move on, but before we do, I just saw Vin Hill in the chat, and as many of you know, Vin has been a member of Sifted for a long time. Vin just got married, so congratulations, Vin. I'm going to give you the... Congratulations, brother. Hope everything went great. I think I saw on Facebook somebody brought some kind of illness to his wedding, though, so hopefully everyone's recovering
Wedding
from that.
box.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about ARMS, and this is a game that you and I are split on. You are not excited about ARMS at all. I have been cautiously optimistic about ARMS, and there was a Nintendo Direct this week, and I have to say that after this Direct, I'm going more in that direction. I am really starting to like this game and get interested in this game. Did you have a chance to watch the Direct this week?
I watched some of it.
Change your opinion at all?
No.
Really?
I just don't care.
Why? Why are you so?
I don't find the idea appealing at all. I don't care about boxing. I don't care about like kind of the arena fighting thing. I don't think the whole the arm stretches out and turns thing is interesting. I'm just not. There's nothing about it that grabs me. I don't know. I can't quite say why. It's just I look at it and I'm just like, meh.
What you want to know? What really impressed me about this Direct is the depth.
It does look like there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
It's not like, I mean, my initial impression of it when they first showed it was like, oh, this is like Ready to Rumble boxing or something.
No.
But there's a lot more here.
There is. I mean, that's what really impressed me, and I should have known better because Nintendo typically adds sort of those extra layers of skill and strategy to its games that may seem really simple and cute outwardly, but then there's always, it's like with Mario Kart with power sliding in turbos. They always add kind of that extra layer for the extra player or for the older player who isn't maybe a kid, where they can get more out of it. And the more I watched this Direct, the more impressed I was with sort of the rock, paper, scissors strategy that's sort of underpinning the whole thing. For instance, the classes are a big deal because you can block incoming punches with your own punches, provided that your character is, and again, it's that rock, paper, scissors, the higher, as long as you're equal or one step above the punch that's coming in. See, there's a lot of sort of defensive mechanics in the game that I had no idea about before this Nintendo Direct. The other concern I had was, so what? This is just going to be like a mano-a-mano fighting game. It's probably going to have a no campaign, which it actually doesn't look like it still does really have a campaign. I'm sure it's just going to be like a ladder of fighters. But again, in this Direct, they started showing off all these extra features. We just saw some there with like, we're seeing some right now. There's like a basketball option, kind of like Rocket League. There's a volleyball option. There's a gang of like mini games like these that you can compete in that will help you and sort of train you to get better at the game. It appears that it's going to be, even though it doesn't have a traditional campaign to it or doesn't appear to at this point, it does look like it's going to be pretty feature rich. It came out this week also that the person working on this was the person behind Mario Kart 8, which I was surprised about. It looks a lot more like Splatoon to me than it does Mario Kart.
Yeah, but I think they've, you're still dealing with a power level roughly in the same ballpark as Wii U.
Yeah.
So I think Splatoon they really found like kind of the sweet spot for what art style really works.
Yeah.
And while this isn't exactly the same art style as Splatoon, it has that same kind of clean look to it.
Yeah.
I think it looks really nice for the hardware it's on.
Yeah.
Like they're targeting exactly where they should be targeting graphically with this.
And they finally announced a full roster of characters. This game, by the way, is coming out in like a month. It comes out during E3. There's going to be an open beta for everyone the week of E3. So everyone's going to get a chance to try this out before they actually decide to spend their money on it or not. But I'm excited for this game now. I thought it was just kind of like a gap plugger for Nintendo, but I'm really starting to wonder if this might turn into the next Splatoon, like the next kind of big multiplayer experience on Nintendo platforms. That people are kind of like, hey, this is something different, it's something unique, and
it might for the diehard Nintendo audience. I don't know if that's enough to give it critical mass.
Do you think, though? I mean, I don't know. I mean, have you ever seen a game like this before?
Well, those are the people who own Switches.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much your only audience right now.
Yeah, I'm just asking specifically with you, because you're obviously a big fighting game fan. Do you not see at least some appeal in this? That it's something completely different?
No.
You prefer to just keep
it does look different, but it's not a different that I'm interested in.
I guess I'm just having problems figuring out why you're so down on it.
Because I think it looks stupid.
Why, though?
Because it doesn't look... I don't care about the mechanical stuff, about the moving arms. I don't care about that stuff. That's motion control nonsense that is going to come down to whether your controller functions properly, whether you can get that motion down right. It's not about...
No, you can play it with just the Pro Controller.
Yeah, I know, but it seems more like it's adding another layer between you and the game than it is, and the opponent, than it is making how you interact and compete with the opponent different. Like and again, it's all kind of like a permutation of boxing, and I find boxing intensely dull.
Okay.
Not that this looks like boxing outside of the basic
ultimately
trappings,
it really is boxing.
But like, it's not something I care about.
Wow.
I mean, I'll try the beta and see if it hooks me when I actually get my hands on it. But like, in terms of like, I mean, I see people like freaking out about how it looks the most amazing. I feel like somebody handed out some really good drugs and I didn't get any. Like I don't know. I don't understand. So I'll try it when the beta goes up, or maybe at E3. But like, it is at this point, it is simply not something that I care to seek out at all when things come. I don't click on things when it pops. I don't.
Yeah. Well, you're not alone. It's not an extremely popular game on.
And there have been games that I felt that way about that I ended up really liking when I finally played. I'm not saying that this is it's doomed to be in my worst games category for the year. But it's just some things you got to get your hands on and to understand or to believe in it.
I get that.
And this might be one of those things, or it might just be one of those things I just don't. A lot of Nintendo's kind of general game philosophy of like, there's no campaign, there's no world building, there's no story, there's no nothing. It's just like, here's a bunch of ways to play a game, and I'm like, I that's not really what I'm into.
No, anymore. I get that. It's a cop out. It's an easy way for Nintendo to get games out, and we're going to actually take a look. They actually during this direct they released the first campaign trailer for Splatoon 2. Spoiler: it's our trailer of the week this week, so we're going to get to see that a little later. But you're absolutely right. Like, you think about a game like Breath of the Wild that kind of finally brought Nintendo's single-player experience into the 21st century. And you look at something like Splatoon, which I had to really fight to get through the campaign in that, and I know some people love it, say it's best campaign ever. I personally had to struggle to get through it. So in my opinion, it's like, if this game, if that's the best they could have done, like the Splatoon 1 campaign, if that's the best thing they could have done for ARMS, then I'm okay with it not being there. I'd prefer to just focus on the multiplayer elements, but then the game should be cheap.
Right.
I mean, if it really comes without a campaign, you should be able to buy this game for $40 max, in my opinion.
Like, I'm more interested in Splatoon 2 because it has a more robust feature set in campaign. Yeah. It's like what I was just saying with Injustice 2. Like, there's a whole lot to do there. There's a whole lot to keep you busy and keep you playing, even if you're not, going to buy it just for the competitive scene. I can't imagine ever even accidentally stumbling over the competitive scene for ARMS, so it would have to completely entertain me. And I don't know anyone else with a Switch other than you. Yeah. So
I think it will be a lot like Splatoon. There will be this group of people who swear by it, and then a lot of other people who will play it for a couple weeks and never get it.
Right. I mean, it's like to me, it just looks like another glorified minigame collection. and no matter how complex that minigame may be, there's if I'm going to play a fighting game, I'm going to play Street Fighter or some other more traditional thing. And I'm just not interested.
I think that's the one thing that this Direct did for me, though, that tipped me over that scale, is that I thought it was like just people are just going to go out and flail their arms, and whoever gets lucky enough to land punches are going to win.
Yeah.
After watching this Direct, though, there's a ton of depth to this game.
I figured
there's
wasn't
the whole
like that.
Elemental element of it, wherein there's grappling and pulling people in, and then throwing and
I figured it wouldn't
canceling.
be like that just because Nintendo doesn't do that usually.
Yeah.
Nintendo makes stuff I don't care about sometimes, but rarely do they make something that's just like stupid. And Wii Music is sort of the weird one in the sense that they actually did make kind of a dumb, simple, pointless game.
Yeah.
Which is not their usual MO.
That was one of the worst first-party games from Nintendo ever.
Yeah, and like the fact that they really leaned hard on it was because they were targeting the people that bought Wiis that weren't gamers.
Yeah.
This one, I don't think anything on the Switch that's come out of Nintendo so far has been anything but designed for gamers who are going to sit down, play something, master it,
Agreed.
understand what they're looking at, and really dig into it. Like even Mario Kart, like you say, has those hidden depths that differ per game.
Yeah.
They don't rest on their laurels in that regard. But this is just not really one that I care to, spend that time on unless I play the beta and it just hooks me.
I'm interested to see when you play if it changes your mind at all.
For Nintendo right now, I'm just like, you give me a call when you're going to talk about Mario and Xenoblade.
Yeah. Which it looks like Mario is coming out this year.
Yeah, I'm sure. I was always sure Mario would.
Yeah.
Xenoblade is the one I'm just like, and they keep saying it.
They are.
They keep saying.
One thing I will say is I think that after this week, it is a stone cold lock that you have won the Fantasy League.
Oh, yeah.
Because
South Park.
Well, South Park confirmed a date,
Yeah.
and it's not like at the end of the year. It's in like October. Right. And Mario is the focus of E3, which isn't 1,000% lock that is coming out this year, because Zelda was the focus last year. It ended up getting delayed.
But if Mario doesn't come out this Christmas, they got nothing.
It's going to happen. And then the final nail in the coffin for me was Fire Emblem Echoes getting it's actually got anywhere from a 7 to a 9.5.
Really?
But yeah, it's
I haven't seen that.
The reviews are all over, but it's not that solid 9 that I needed. So
my copy already shipped.
Yeah. Well, some people have loved it, but everyone's biggest complaint about Echoes is its difficulty. Which is odd because
it's too hard?
Yeah, because I've seen some of the critics who have railed on Echoes for its difficulty are big Souls fans. So, I don't know. But that is the big knock on it so far from most of the reviews that have come out, is that some people feel it's too challenging. So,
welcome to Fire Emblem, boys.
Yeah, exactly. What are you talking about? It's always been that way. So, I think officially our league is over, and it looks like you are the two-time champ of the Sifted Fantasy League. Yeah, I know. Don't think about it too long. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk quickly about another Nintendo story that came out this week. So the Wall Street Journal. I know some people may trust the Wall Street Journal, some may not. But the Wall Street Journal, as it's reported on Nintendo over the years, has been very accurate with its reporting on Nintendo. Whoever works there definitely has a highly placed, very accurate source at Nintendo. Or I wouldn't mention this if it weren't the Wall Street Journal or even Time. Time, for whatever reason, has great connections with Nintendo as well. Wall Street Journal reports that a mobile take on Zelda is on the way. No surprise.
No.
I think even though they haven't announced it, I think everybody assumed you'd be an idiot not to make some kind of a Zelda game for mobile.
You want to surprise me, make a mobile Metroid game.
Yeah, exactly. Or a Metroid game at all.
Yeah, too.
That actually is a Metroid game. The question becomes, though, what we see
mobile Metroid game would be like Raise a Metroid. It'd be like Nintendogs
You're
with
right.
Metroids.
Yeah.
That's what it would have been.
The question becomes, we've seen Nintendo kind of take different strategies with how it handles mobile properties. So we have Super Mario Run, which is honestly a pretty faithful representation of Mario. It's an endless runner, but it's still about platforming.
It's Mario adapted to that format.
Right. You look at Fire Emblem, which, to me, was way more close, even closer to the real game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I feel so far they've been kind of like, you know how like
they have Pokemon Go, which is completely different from the base game.
Yeah, but I don't lump that in with the other two because it's made by Pokemon Company. It's kind of a different.
I'm just talking about because look, someone outside is going to develop the Zelda game. It's not like Nintendo's going to make the Zelda game,
right?
So,
but it's just like
we're just talking about how they handle their IP within the mobile space.
Yeah, but Pokemon's not their IP.
Right.
It's Pokemon Company is calling the shots on that one. So, but I think Fire Emblem and Mario definitely, you can see the same pedigree in them, and it reminds me of like, you know how they have now like they have like the Oreo and like cookie packs of like 100 calories in a tiny little like packet kind of thing. That's what the Nintendo mobile games are like.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like, oh, look at this bite-sized little sort of, very very, discreetly portioned piece of this game you like.
Yeah.
So I figure Zelda will pretty much be something similar. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like, I do wonder if it's going to be like a 2D one or a 3D one. If it's 2D,
I think it's 2D.
I think it's 2D as well.
Yeah.
I figure like they didn't let all the R&D on that 2D version they made out of Breath of the Wild go to waste.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it was basically it's like you go through shrines, like and like 2D shrines.
Yeah.
And like each like a daily challenge of going through this shrine or whatever.
New shrine released every day. Yeah. You can pay for more shrines.
Basically like an infinite number of like 2D Zelda dungeons, which is like, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it also solves a problem of controls on mobile as well.
Right.
That's been a big hang-up for me with mobile gaming since it started, and it still is, because they really haven't improved all that much after all this time. They're still touchscreen controls. And if you make I also feel like it'll be far more puzzle-oriented and far less action-oriented.
Yeah, I would think so.
Lots of block pushing and like flipping switches and
bombing walls.
Like that kind of using the boomerang to flip switches and stuff like that. I honestly wouldn't even be that surprised if it's a lot like what we're seeing right now, just like the original Zelda game. Very simple, easy to see on your small screen.
I think that would make a lot of sense.
I do not see a 3D Zelda. I just think the chances of that are slim.
I mean, the graphics might be literally made of polygons, but I don't think it would be like a 3D perspective.
I'd even be shocked if the game's polygonal, to be honest with you. I think it's just going to be flatly 2D. And I think it needs it. I think Nintendo needs to set up its games in a way that you can look at them and you can tell whether they're the mobile game or a console game / handheld. Now that the line's blurring, obviously, with the Switch. And I think that's a concern of Nintendo's. And I think that's one thing it did get right with Pokemon Go, is that it looked and played completely different from the handheld, and yet still...
Well, yeah, because they reskinned Ingress.
Right.
Basically.
Right. But yet still, it managed to evangelize players of Pokemon Go to go and pick up Sun and Moon and go pick up a 3DS. 3DS sales shot through the roof whenever Pokemon Go was a big phenomenon. It still is, apparently. There's still like 200 million people playing it every month. I'm really surprised, actually, at how long it's held on there. But... yeah, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on this topic. I just wanted to kind of pick your brain to see where you thought it was going to head. And I think we're both kind of thinking the same thing here. It's going to simplify the process. Anything with Zelda on it, especially after Breath of the Wild, is going to sell well. Although I'm guessing... The one thing I will say about Nintendo, though, is it hasn't really announced its mobile games like way out ahead. It'll announce them, and then it seems like they're here like a couple months later. So...
Wouldn't surprise me if there was like an E3 thing and it was right around that time.
And then we get it like maybe the holidays or something like that, just a couple months later.
Because when did Fire Emblem hit? A couple months ago?
Yeah, I guess it was like February or March.
I feel like once a quarter they're kind of dropping these things.
Yeah,
roughly. And isn't there an Animal Crossing one coming?
There's still, it was delayed, but there is an Animal Crossing coming. That's one of the next games to be released for mobile by Nintendo. It
wouldn't surprise me if Zelda was like this fall.
You think Zelda will be its most popular mobile game? Because Super Mario Run in the end did not do well.
No.
Pachter was like right on the money with that, and I was one of the people who thought he was crazy when he had his low estimates for Super Mario Run, but he was absolutely right.
I thought it was going to sell a little better than it did, but I did call how much it cost.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah,
because I think he called the same price.
I think he said it was going to be higher. Actually,
higher?
Yeah.
I think he said it was like minimum $10.
I don't know. I can't remember.
But I was like, that was where I was. I'm like, it's gonna be $10. Like, and people said I was crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, nope.
I mean, what happened is a lot of people downloaded it, played the free part of it, and just never bought it.
I know tons of people that did that.
I did. I never bought it.
I bought it just because. I figured, I should play more than that to talk about it. And I did finish it. I didn't dislike it.
Yeah, it's not a bad game.
Yeah,
but it didn't do enough to establish itself as a mobile game. Right. I think is what it is. It didn't feel like a mobile game.
I will say they did improve it later on, and I like now the game as it is now is I think a little less annoying in the sense that like you lose less if you lose a competition with another player. I mean, I played it long enough to get a bunch of the Christmas decorations and stuff like that. I enjoyed it well enough. I don't know if I'm happy I paid $10 for it.
I have a lot of friends that play it still. In fact, one of my old buddies from Philly just sent me a message on Facebook, and he's like, "Hey, I'm playing this. Aren't you playing it?" And I'm like, "Dude, that's like so old now." Like
that's like 6 months ago.
Yeah. But to him, he's like, "I just found Mario on my cell phone. Oh my god, it's a revelation."
I like Fire Emblem a lot better.
Yeah,
in terms of capturing the experience of the bigger games.
Yeah, I mean, still personally, to me, Pokemon Go is my favorite Nintendo mobile game so far. Even though I know it's not their game.
Yeah, I just don't put that in that same category because it's all Niantic to me.
Yeah.
Basically taking Ingress and throwing Pikachu into it. And obviously going to be bigger than all other Nintendo mobile games combined for a while, it seems, until Nintendo makes one that just sort of catches fire.
I just enjoyed it because I thought it made the best use of the platform. It made use of the cameras and the location, like the GPS stuff.
It's the one game that could only be done on that platform. Which
and everything else were like watered down versions of it. And that's thus the lower third for this segment, which is Breath of the Wild. It's going to be a milder version of Zelda probably that comes out on mobile.
Although I will say, I think, if I had to pick one that I think is going to be their breakout hit in that series, probably Animal Crossing.
Yeah, I was just waiting to say it. Oh, it's definitely going to be huge. They're going to make so much money off of DLC on that game. Oh, yeah. People buying stuff to put in their little houses and outfits.
Well, the fact that it's right there and you don't have to take the 3DS with you anymore. And I know my niece and all her friends played Animal Crossing New Leaf forever.
So did I. I probably spent 50, 60 hours playing that game. So went to that far island and fished for like the rare... I got totally hooked on it.
And to the point that, like, when I don't know, like, detailed things about that game, she looks at me like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, you know everything about games.
Yeah, how do you not know that? I'm like, I didn't play New Leaf very long.
Oh, you didn't play it very long.
I'm not an Animal Crossing nut, really.
I'm really not either, typically. Like, I never even played the Wii version at all. City Folk or whatever it was.
I played the GameCube version a lot, and I played the DS version a lot.
Yeah, I did,
and after that, it was sort of like, I feel like I've got this. I feel like I know
I really only played the DS version and New Leaf. That's it. But I think that this franchise isn't made for consoles. It is made for mobile.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems silly to play that game on a console.
It's made for a thing that's already in your pocket. Yeah. I mean, that's why I think that one will be a pop.
And the Switch version, I think, is going to work too because Switch obviously is portable, and it's perfect. You can play. The thing I like about that franchise is you can just play it wherever. Like, you can just be sitting on your couch while you're watching TV. It's not like you have to pay attention to it every second. It's like you can just kind of hit start and leave it there. And
you can
close it and come back and pop it up. You don't miss anything. Like,
and you kind of have a bit where you're sort of like, oh, I'm done for the day. Yeah. Like, I've done everything I can do today.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes that's annoying. Yeah. But sometimes it's like, it feels good. Like, you've played your Animal Crossing for the day.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I think Animal Crossing is going to be a smash hit. I don't know if it's going to do better financially than Pokemon Go did.
No.
I don't know. It might.
How many people downloaded that game, Pokemon Go?
I don't know, like 1 billion or something.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not talking about download, but as far as financially, like making money, the DLC on that game is just going to sell like gangbusters, and I think it's going to do really well. So,
I'm sure they'll do some kind of like lottery thing for it, where it's like, like the what was it? God, what was that game with the slot machine stuff?
A mobile game?
Yeah, it was a mobile game where like the Miitomo thing, where you had to play the pachinko game thing for that. It would be something like that. I guarantee it would be some kind of like game of chance where you have to like keep buying leaves or something, or give your real money to Tom Nook over and over again.
That would really suck. But
it's gonna get you.
Yeah, it's been interesting watching Nintendo kind of navigate these uncharted waters and try to figure out a brand new space. Although it should have been doing this for the last 9 years, as it watched Japan be completely overtaken by mobile gaming.
That's kind of the Nintendo story, right? It's like Breath of the Wild. It's like, there's no reason that game couldn't have existed 5 years ago.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
But it's like, better late than never.
I just like that Nintendo is finally starting to admit that it's wrong on some things, because that's really what's been the problem. Is it's always been stubborn, and it always thought it was right. And whatever trends were happening, this comes from Yamauchi. I mean, that is the corporate culture that he instilled at Nintendo, that don't worry about what everyone else is doing. We're always right. We're going to do things our way. And
it looks like with Breath of the Wild, maybe they're starting to finally kind of turn that corner of like, sometimes it's okay to take other people's ideas and make them your own and make them better.
Yeah,
which I think is what a lot of Breath of the Wild success comes from, is taking things other games have done and putting their own version of, their own spin on it. It's not always done better than other games, but I think it all comes together better than most other games. So,
well, Nintendo takes 7 years to make a game, where everybody else takes 2 or 3 years. So
but now they've got
it has the time to do that.
They've got the template. They could do 2 more of those, and I think people will be fine with it.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Ubisoft. So this week, lots of financial reports coming out. It was essentially the end of the reporting quarter for a lot of companies. Ubisoft, no different, came out and did its financial reports, doing very well, I might add, which is very strange because it hasn't really released a lot of big games.
But don't they have like the top games, of the selling games? Of
it does. For Honor and Ghost Recon Wildlands are like the 2 top selling games of 2017 so far. Zelda's sneaking up in there, but
we didn't call that one on For Honor, that's for sure.
No.
I did not think that was going to sell as well as it did.
I didn't, me either. Yeah, especially after I played it and evaluated it. I was really shocked that that word of mouth spread so much and it sold so well. Wildlands even more so.
I don't hear anyone talking about Wildlands.
I mean, people on Sifted, there are some people who are like, I love this game. Why aren't the rest of you playing it? I've seen some people go on to our PSN group and be like, hey, anyone want to play this with me? Crickets.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think that's like when I was talking about maybe last week or the week before about how like, there's a huge mainstream audience that it doesn't go on the internet and look up games. It doesn't talk about games on forums. It's just they play games and then they live their lives. And like, those are the people that are buying Ghost Recon and playing it every night for a couple hours with their friends. And it's like,
and it continues to do well, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times you're like, okay...
I would not have called that on that game.
Yeah.
But like...
A lot of times you can fool people with the IP. Ghost Recon. Like, there's a lot of old school Ghost Recon fans. And in fact, probably a lot of people, like you just mentioned, people who are maybe hardcore gamers back on the original Xbox, have since had kids, a family, a mortgage, and don't have the time to interact with games the way they want to. They should come to Sifted. But, because that's who I made the site for. But,
I can definitely see, like, people who were, like, Rainbow Six Vegas fans kind of coming back to that.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, a new Ghost Recon? Well, heck yeah. I mean, I remember the last one I played for 300 hours, and I don't have money to buy games like I used to, and so I can see why that happened. But I'm still shocked it's the best-selling game of 2017 so far. Outsold Horizon Zero Dawn, like, everything.
Well, I mean, it was on multiple platforms, so it had that advantage.
It helps,
but, like, it seems so stealthy. In terms of, like, you know, being...
Well, we did see every week in Europe for, like, 6 weeks straight. It was #1 in Europe as well. Yeah. So it sold well overseas as well as in the US.
Ubisoft's really got this stuff figured out.
It really does. And one of the
people rag on them all the time, but it's like, it sells.
Why do you think Vivendi is, like, dumping all its resources into a hostile takeover? Because it's like...
Even if you hate it, it's like why do they keep making Transformers movies? Because they make $1 billion.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. Like, it's like those gifts that they used to have for the Game Boy Advance with Iwata, where he just was just smiling and it's just money flying out of the 3DS. I mean, that's Ubisoft. Like, it just knows how to milk it, and it's honing its craft even further. If you look at that financial report, it's talking about how, hey, we're making less games now. I mean, it totally gets, like, the games as a platform thing. And that's, it's working with For Honor every week. For Honor has new stuff to buy for DLC. They put out a trailer that shows off all the new stuff. And sometimes it's just new costumes, but sometimes it's new finishing moves for, like, every single character in the game. Ubisoft is doing a really good job of with the games as a platform sort of financial structure. And in that note, as it said, it's not going to be releasing as many games as it used to. It did announce The Crew 2. Matt, do we need a Crew 2? Because it can be argued the first Crew was really Ubisoft's first foray into this games as a platform idea.
Yeah, that's true. Do we need it? Maybe in a world where they're not making any decent Need for Speed games.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I have the Crew, the original Crew, and like the full... I got the... I think it was like $19
before it went free to play or whatever.
Yeah, but it was like $19 for the whole shebang or whatever.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. The Crew doesn't play tremendously well.
No, it doesn't, yeah.
But it's such a good idea.
Yeah.
It's such a cool notion of like, I mean, and it's so big.
Yeah.
And like, I love the concept of the Crew. Which if people don't, because it's the most generic name in the history of, it's the Ubisoft racing game where you race across the entire United States.
And literally the whole United States.
Whole United States. I mean, there's some compression here and there, but you can drive, it takes like an hour or something to drive from like New York to San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean, And you can do it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's packed with tons of stupid little things to do that it's hard to pay attention to the road sometimes.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, I've played probably 10, 15 hours of it total. And, like, I think I've been from, like, Chicago to Detroit.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, there's so much there. And then they added, like, a cop chase thing in, like, their last update. Like, their last update was like 6 months ago. I'm like, they're still putting out expansions for this thing?
But that's what I was saying. They've got it figured out.
Yeah.
Like, they know that it's working.
So, like...
For this game that really tanked out of the gate.
So if you, like, you know, if they're going to make a sequel that plays better, give me something that plays on par with one of the open world Need for Speed games, but like this, yeah, I'm in. That's cool. That's great. I don't know if they have it in them to do that.
Yeah.
But, like, I love the idea of the crew.
Yeah.
It's just, no single part of that game gelled properly.
Yep.
And also, it still had that problem of just, like, you know, Ubisoft seems to think that the only way to appeal to a mainstream audience is just to bro the hell out of stuff. Yeah. And, like, everyone's just the coolest street racing, garage working mechanics.
Like me, right? I'm a street racer.
Yeah, exactly. It's like everyone's Shane in the world of the crew. I mean, hell, you even called groups on Sifted Crews.
That's right. Yeah.
Look at that. They knew. They knew what they're making.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they didn't say much about the sequel other than to say they basically hinted that there's going to be a lot more off-road stuff in the game, which makes it seem like it's going to inch a little bit more closely to like the Forza Horizon series, where you have
there are worse templates to follow. Well,
one thing I would say is, I don't know if you remember when the first trailer came out for the crew, but it showed a lot of off-road stuff.
Yeah.
But then ultimately in the game, it was a very, very small part of it.
Yeah, unless you could seek it out, but like, and I think they did like expand it more with like a later expansion, I believe.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big mud bogger.
Yeah.
If you can believe it.
Never would have guessed.
Don't let the beard fool you. But so I never did a whole. I'm more of a street guy.
Yeah.
Keep me on the asphalt.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is there. I mean, there's a whole section for like off-road stuff.
Right.
And like you can have like off-road versions of like some pretty weird cars in there, which is cool. They added motorcycles, I think, at some point.
I'm wondering if they're going to make the entire United States an open world.
Well, I mean, that's what it is.
I mean, kinda. I mean, there's certain like choke points where you kind of have to stay on.
Right. I mean, you got to go through like Denver.
Right.
But you mean like
literally just drive anywhere you want?
Could you like turn right out of like Chicago and just
go to New York?
Drive to New York. Yeah, drive to New York without ever touching a road.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe.
Which would be insane.
Be cool.
It would, but it would be insane to build something like that.
But if anybody's going to do that, it'd be Ubisoft.
It is Ubisoft.
Because I mean, open worlds are kind of their thing. I mean, they don't always hit it out of the park, but you can usually see they had a good idea.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm waiting for them to start tying everything they make together into the Ubisoft cinematic universe.
Right.
Where Assassin's Creed is in the same universe as Watch Dogs is in the same universe as Ghost Recon.
Which is possible.
You could.
Which is the same universe as the crew.
Yeah, you could mix that all up.
It could work. And they just call it, the game just would be called Ubisoft. Yeah. And that's it.
Ubi World.
Ubi World, yeah. Okay, so the crew, too, I think both of us are lukewarm on that. Trying to stay positive because it has possibilities. Far Cry 5 was officially announced after the leaks that we talked about last week. We're not going to talk a ton about that because obviously we already discussed it at length in last week's episode. You have some intel that you probably can't share.
No.
So there will be information about Far Cry 5 coming out very soon.
Yeah.
Before E3 likely. We should get some information on that. At least.
Yeah, it sounds probably.
Yeah.
I mean that's. It's not one. I'm sure it's not one of their big surprises because it's the fifth game in a series, and really, more like the eighth game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they have to show on this one. It's always interesting to me to see how they try to keep that series fresh because it is a formula. But the fact that they don't have to have the stories or anything relate to each other is, I think, that series' biggest strength.
Yeah.
The fact that you can jump from tropical islands to Tibet to an 80s sci-fi movie to caveman days, like that gives you
a lot of flexibility.
Oh yeah, it gives you a way to make something that plays the same, not feel stale, because you're always doing something a little bit different.
Yep. And then they announced officially that the next Assassin's Creed is coming, will be shown off at E3. all 3 of these games being released before the end of March next year.
Yep. I mean, I would guess, maybe not The Crew 2, I don't know. I would guess most of them in time for Christmas.
Yeah, but they said, officially all they've said is they're all coming out this fiscal year, which ends March 31st of
Although I think
next year.
Far Cry is a couple times come out in the spring, or early in the year. If I remember Far Cry...
The last Far Cry came out in, like, March.
Was it March? Yeah. Yeah, Primal was March. Far Cry 3 was December. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like... Or wait, was it Far Cry 4 that came out in December? I think it was.
No, it was 3.
Was it 3?
Maybe it was both.
I remember one of them could not be considered for Game of the Year because it came out
that was
late.
probably Far Cry 3, because Far Cry 3 was the last review I wrote for X-Play.
Okay.
Which was the very end of 2012.
There you go.
It was the last one I produced. I think Miguel wrote that one.
Okay.
But it was one of the last. It was like the last game out the door
before X-Play
shut down.
Okay.
So yeah, that was definitely they're definitely late releases, and that would have been definitely past the deadline for Game of the Year. And maybe Far Cry 4 was at the same. I don't remember when Far Cry 4 came out.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was around the same time. But yeah, Far Cry tends to either just barely squeak in there or just barely make the end of fiscal. So I would guess Far Cry would probably be the last of the 3.
Yep. Some of the details have been sneaking out about the Assassin's Creed. It looks like it's confirmed that it is in Egypt.
Yep.
It is a prequel of some sort.
Yeah, probably called Assassin's Creed Origins.
Yeah.
And I think they said it was I think the rumors said it was the Black Flag team.
Yep, which is good news.
Which is good. Very good news.
Yeah. They said drastic changes.
Yeah, they haven't. There was talk about like progression of the character will be more based on what you do rather than your progression in the story.
Right.
Because one of the things in Assassin's Creed has always been like, you can play as long as you want, but you're not going to get that new piece of gear until you finish that story mission.
Right. Yeah. I'm wondering if it's going to be more like Breath of the Wild, to be honest with you.
I mean, or more like Far Cry. Like Far Cry, you can progress your character pretty far by doing nothing except like running around killing stouts or whatever. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they're taking a lesson from that, which is funny because Far Cry 3 really took a lot of lessons from Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
It just makes me wonder how and there's rumors of being able to like sail the Mediterranean. There's going to be ship combat.
Confirmed.
You might even be able to get to Greece.
Yeah.
At some point.
That was one of the more far-fetched rumors, but or maybe I thought they were saying Greece for the sequel.
I don't know.
To Origins.
It was unclear. I think. But I mean, I'm on board with that. I'm an Egypt fan.
Yeah.
I'd like to see their take on that, and it's. I feel like they'd kind of gone as far as they could go in terms of pushing the date forward into the modern era, and you even starting to see problems in Syndicate where like you had to have the grappling hook to be able to get across the wider streets and the higher buildings, and I think going back to the roots is probably a wise choice. I do think Assassin's Creed Origins is a terrible, terrible title.
You know what? Whenever
we don't know if that's real yet, but like it's. I just think Origins is a bad. First off, it reminds me of Wolverine Origins, which no one should ever remind anyone of that movie. So, but it's just like it's such a blah. There it is.
No, Origins, hands down, is the most popular subtitle for a video game. Period.
Yeah.
This was originally Kotaku. Whenever it leaked the first information from the next Assassin's Creed, said it was Assassin's Creed Empires. And so when it came out that it was going to be called Origins, I had to go into the database and change the title of the game. And so what you do is like you can search for just one word. And so after I changed the title, I searched for Origins, and literally there was like 20 games with the subtitle Origins. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It is the most generic name you could ever have for a game. I don't think it'll hurt it ultimately.
No, I mean, it's Assassin's Creed is Assassin's Creed, but like, it's just bleh.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's also like I didn't.
It's what they always use for prequels,
right? I also don't agree with. I mean, I thought a Victory was a cooler name. For that than Syndicate.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah,
it's a reference to Victoria and Victorian times. It's I don't know. Whoever's naming these things is a few frames off where I would be.
Well, it's all by the numbers in marketing. I mean, it probably was called Assassin's Creed Empires. They did a focus group on it, and 80 of the 100 people said that they liked Origins better because they knew it was a prequel.
Or they were all, or the focus groups were all like, "Oh, why isn't this a Star Wars game?"
Right? Yeah. That's probably the type of stuff you
would not be surprised at all.
Well, Ubisoft is on a great trajectory. I hope it can stay on this trajectory, and Vivendi just keeps his nose out of it. But it's looking more and more likely that's not going to be the
really
case.
Starting to warm up.
It really is, and I just wonder what kind of an impact it'll have, and if all these games end up making it when they're supposed to.
Well, I'd like to say that if you're a company that's looking to take over something like Ubisoft, you probably want this successful company to keep doing what it's doing. But in reality, whoever buys a thing tends to want to make it their own to some degree, and that can sometimes be very bad for everyone involved.
And a lot of the people involved may not want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
you could have an exodus.
Ubisoft has already started talking about like rallying the troops and being like, okay, well, if you take over, we'll just take our cash and we'll start a new publisher and we'll take all the good people with us because...
And anyone they don't take, I'm sure the other developers in Toronto and Montreal will be happy.
Yeah.
WB Montreal would love some extra talent, I'm sure.
I mean, with all due respect to Rare, Rare is a perfect example of the people make the company. Yeah. It's not the logo or the name or the IP. It's the actual creatives who are working on those products that make the difference.
And maybe that IP will carry you through one subsequent hit, but as soon as people realize what they're playing is not what they wanted or not what they're used to, they won't come back for that next one until they know better. And you even saw it with Assassin's Creed.
Right. Yep.
Syndicate did not sell what it should have sold because Unity let people down.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to watch over the coming year. I think we're all rooting for Ubisoft in this. Nobody ever likes to see a company being taken over hostily. That is one part of capitalism that I really hate.
I'm a big fan of most of Ubisoft stuff. I know a lot of it's by rote and a lot of it's repetitive, and you're always just hunting for the same. Like even Ghost Recon, it's just like here's a map full of icons. Yeah. And like in a post Breath of the Wild world, that's not really. Breath of the Wild kind of showed you can do that without directing someone, to everything specifically. You can just sort of like guide them and let them play.
Give a little nudge in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy all the Ubisoft stuff, and I will probably pick up Ghost Recon when the summer drought hits, and just have something that I can, what better way to spend the summer than picking up 1,000 little notes?
Good times. Don't take a vacation.
Don't take a vacation. Gather lore.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to our last topic of this week's episode, Destiny 2. Save the biggest for last. I was going to say best for last, but the response coming out of this big event that happened yesterday, mostly positive, but certainly mixed. I think the pervading opinion from most journalists that went there is that it's not as big a departure as they had hoped for. Matt, you didn't. I'm so shocked that you did not have time to watch this because you are literally the biggest Destiny fan player that I know.
Yeah, I was very busy yesterday. I saw the trailer. I saw the gameplay trailer with the tower being destroyed and all that. Yeah, but I did not have time to watch the actual live stream.
Well, I did, and I took a ton of notes. So, as a Destiny player, a hardcore player, how many hours would you say you put into the first one?
100-something. 120.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ping all these off
initially, and then I think I put another like 50 or so into the Taken King and Rise of Iron stuff.
Okay. So I'm going to ping all these changes off of you, and then I want to get your take as a Destiny expert and hardcore player of your impression of them. Let's see. Let's talk about the PC version very quickly, because that information kind of is the most recent. It just kind of came out today. No dedicated server. Well, actually, first let's say PC version going to be hosted on Battle.net.
Which is now Blizzard app or whatever.
And it's very curious. Today, people asked them, why did you bring up Battle.net? Because that's gone. Now it's called Blizzard Launcher.
Right.
And Blizzard said this is an exception. That we decided to use that old term for this reason and that for this one purpose, and that's it. Why would they do that? Brand recognition? They're like, people don't know what Blizzard Launcher is yet?
Partly that, and partly because I have yet to run into anyone who thinks Blizzard Launcher is better than Battle.net.
Yeah.
It's just, people, even like the hardcore Overwatch people are just like, now it just says Blizzard on my little app thing. It's stupid. Like, they don't like it. Battle.net. Or what does somebody say? It's like it's a launcher that gets you into conflict with people. It's not a launcher that has anything to do with the weather.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. I mean, that's valid. I guess it makes sense that Activision want to start putting more stuff on that because it is kind of silly to have a whole platform like that for 5 games.
Yeah. Blizzard also said that it is not going to get into the business of hosting third-party games on its service.
Right.
This was a special exception just for basically their partners in some ways.
It makes sense in the way that
it's all in the family because Blizzard's owned by Activision,
and most people probably already have BattleNet installed, and it makes it pretty simple.
Yep.
And it means Activision doesn't have to pay Gabe Newell anything.
Yep. The PC version is actually being released later. Console versions are, I think, September 9th, I believe. They haven't announced the exact hard date for the PC version, but it's coming later, and it will not have dedicated servers on PC. Is that something that's overblown, you think, Matt, a lot?
It can be. I mean, it depends if you're... I mean, I'm not tremendously interested in the multiplayer stuff. Although I did play a lot of the competitive stuff on the first, more than I thought I would. But we've had that conversation before about the dedicated versus peer-to-peer, and dedicated I know is better, but I'm not good enough to really tell the difference. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. You have to be esports level to where you're really kind of seeing the difference. I
mean, I'm gonna get the PlayStation 4 version because they have the same deal again, where the DLC gets there first.
Yep.
And I'm also not gonna wait 2 weeks or whatever, or weeks, months, who knows how long it's going to take for the PC version to show up.
Yeah.
I was originally, if it was day and date, I would be more inclined because the performance is obviously going to be better. Console versions of 30 frames a second, is, unlocked frame.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Console
versions of even on PlayStation 4 Pro, it's not going to be 60 frames a second.
It doesn't really surprise me, and I'm not a super crazy frame rate person, so it'll be fine.
Don't you think that maybe the Xbox Scorpio version should have popped up yesterday about that?
Well, they said they can't talk about the Scorpio version until the announcement at E3.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something we don't know.
Right.
Clearly, I think
it should be able to run it at 60.
Maybe. I mean, the fact that Scorpio exists is probably one of the reasons the PC version exists.
Probably. Yeah.
Because that parity is one of Microsoft's tent poles or pillars right now.
Yeah.
So, and who knows? Maybe the PC version's coming out later because they have to coincide with the Scorpio launch.
Yeah.
But because the game's coming out with September, Scorpio I think is estimated to be November. What if the PC version is a Scorpio launch title kind of? And it's but that would really suck for Xbox One owners.
It would, yeah.
But because it's now if you buy a Scorpio, that game you've been playing for 3 months is going to look way better. It's well, thanks, dude. I don't know. It's not a game killer for me, but I know a lot of people are disappointed that these next gen consoles are not running this thing at a level that they consider acceptable, especially the Pro, and I mean, we don't know about the Scorpio yet.
Yeah.
The Pro, I think the Pro, while it does offer some incremental advantages, has proven to be kind of a disappointment in terms of performance.
I'd agree, yeah.
So, at this point, I'm just not really surprised by it anymore.
Yep. Let's start talking about a little bit of the nuts and bolts of Destiny 2. Let's see, there's 2 primary weapon slots, one for kinetic, non-elemental damage weapons, and one for energy, elemental damage weapons, and a third slot for power weapons. Mm-hmm. That resonate with you at all? Does it really matter?
I mean, it would matter in the existing game, but I guess if they're going to make that change, they'll have designed the game around that, so I guess we'll see how it works.
Let's see. The base stats, strength, intellect, and discipline have all been removed. You just have armor, agility, and recovery now.
That's not too bad. I mean,
simplifying it.
The more you can simplify it, the better. Especially because
that was a big issue I had with it. Once I finished the campaign, I got lost trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with the whole light and everything. I was just
and they simplified that more as time went on.
Yeah.
In the first game already, but it's kind of like what you said about Dark Souls, where they use these terminology that doesn't automatically mean anything to you, and it's one.
This game was totally guilty of that.
And it's one thing to do that in a game like Dark Souls, where they're intentionally kind of trying to make you sort of puzzle things out. But in a game like Destiny, it should all be instantly readable.
Yeah, there's no reason for it. There really isn't. I don't think there's a reason for it in any game, to be honest. But I know I may stray from the pack a little bit on that. Let's see. Matchmaking for strikes.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, what was it? It's raids that you could do that matchmaking on.
Yeah.
That people were kind of asking for, but Bungie was like, you're not like we don't want to play raids with randoms. Trust us. And it's probably true because you got to do the teamwork has got to be there for the raids for the most part. Until they progress to the point that like the original raid I think can be soloed now.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, the more you just let people play, I'm hoping that on PS, because one of my problems with Destiny because I bought Destiny on PS4, and almost everybody else I knew bought it on Xbox One because we were all Xbox people,
right.
and I switched to PS4 stuff pretty quick because the performance difference was very obvious, and I was like, where is everybody on Destiny? And I remember at some point I loaded up my Xbox One, and it was just like Destiny. It was like my whole friends list is playing Destiny on Xbox One, and I was like, people, you gotta keep up. So I'm still gonna go PS4, I think, on this one, and I hope more people come with me.
I'm playing PS4 definitely.
Because otherwise, I played Destiny. A lot of Destiny I played solo after the first couple of weeks because everybody sort of dropped out of it.
Yeah.
Which you included. I think there's not a whole lot there to hook you unless you have nothing else to play or you really enjoy the sound that Cabal heads make when they pop,
which
I do
yeah.
for sure. I'm glad the Cabal is the main enemy in this because they're the most interesting enemy to me.
They are, and they're the favorite one. My favorite ones to kill as well.
Yeah.
There are tweaks to the classes. I probably should have taken better notes on this so we could have some better discussion on it. But they have tweaked some classes. There's 4 new worlds. Patrols return.
Of course.
Here's something that concerns me, though. They say there's more exploration now. Like, I felt like there was too much of that and not enough action in the first
I didn't
Destiny.
think that. I thought that there's no reason to explore was the problem.
Yeah, because it was just the same crap over and over again.
Right.
So how if they could not fill up that space last time with interesting things to do, when they make it bigger this time, how are they going to fill it up with interesting things to do?
Well, maybe they just didn't have to start over 2 years before release this time.
Yeah, that could be part of it. That has me a little bit concerned. And I think a lot of the hands-on reports that came out of the event, people were saying that they were concerned about that too. They're worried that it's going to be, once again, this kind of big open expanse where you're just doing the same things over and over again.
The density of content is definitely a concern in any major open world thing because they are clearly trying to make this a more organic open world idea.
Yeah.
And not just, I mean, you can even see that in the setup of the story where they destroy the tower because they're trying to remove those transit barriers between the locations where things occur.
Yeah.
So no longer are you going to have to wait through a load screen and look at your fancy ship that does nothing.
Right.
I'm surprised they never did anything with the ships for anything.
I know, yeah.
And get to the tower and then do your stuff at the tower. This looks like, everybody's kind of got their underground base and stuff, but it looks like it's all going to be organically part of one of the gameplay areas. So I'm looking for it. And look, the mere fact that trailer, again, is building the same way that Taken King and Rise of Iron did on making these characters into actual characters. Whereas, when they refer to each other by name, now I actually know who they're talking to. Whereas after I'd played the original vanilla...
I still don't.
I played the original vanilla game for, 100 hours. I couldn't have named anybody in that meeting room where you level stuff up.
Yeah.
And, now I know who all of them are.
Right.
And it's like all you need to do is... And it's funny because the solution ended up being exactly what they did since Halo 1. Just radio conversations between these guys... with distinct writing for each character. That's all it is.
It helps a lot.
And where was that? Where was it?
I'm assuming that will be an element.
Yeah, I feel like they've learned their lesson on that, and I assume that Peter Dinklage will not be returning.
Yeah.
Probably both parties are probably fine with that.
Yeah. Let's see. Bigger side quests. They're now called adventures.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's an improvement the game certainly needed.
Yeah. I mean, the more you can pull it away from being just like your standard MMO busy work, the better.
Yep. I still have a fear of that, though. Here's probably an improvement that every single person who ever played Destiny can 100% get behind. There's no orbit. You don't have to go to that awkward fake loading screen that they would have there where you'd see your ship flying for like 10 minutes before it would load up the next area.
And it's also important because that's the screen where you start to think about what you're doing with your life.
Yeah, you're right. It makes you second guess what you're doing.
Never give me a chance. Never give me a chance for self-reflection. Just keep going. Just keep me playing.
And that's exactly what it is. It's going to be basically controlled by a big map screen, and you just select where you want to go, and off you go. I think everyone will agree that's a big improvement. Multiplayer, the Crucible, getting big changes, going from 6 versus 6 to 4v4. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm kind of okay with it, but like...
I honestly played the Crucible for like a week and a half before I
played the Crucible for quite a while. I was pretty good at it, which is unusual for first-person shooter competitive multiplayer modes. I don't know why. Yeah. I wasn't playing like the...
It's not because it's unbalanced. It was all about like your character and how they were buffed up.
Well, no, I wasn't playing... They didn't have that at the beginning. Like your equipment was all disabled.
At first.
And so that was what I was playing. And of course there were... obviously there were weapon types that were way better.
Right.
And they tried for a while. The hand cannon was king.
It was not balanced, is what I'm getting at. Like, they tried to take away the buffs that you got from playing the regular part of the game, but still, the multiplayer was not very well balanced.
But I enjoyed it for whatever reason. I mean, why? I don't know. I don't know why I like that better. But maybe
it's because Bungie's gunplay feels great.
That's true.
That's a big part of it.
I'm curious. Did they say why they dropped the player
They
count?
have not. That was just like something they mentioned. Like they didn't really go in depth on the Crucible and multiplayer that much. That they were.
I'm kind of okay with that in the sense that like it's not a huge part of my Destiny experience anyway. And if like we can have a full competitive multiplayer experience with a team of 2, which is a pretty easy thing to gather.
Yeah.
Like I'm into that. That's cool. I can see that being a real point of contention with people who are more focused on PvP though.
Yeah. Let's see. We already knew no carryover other than your appearance from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2. Even the fact that they're getting appearance in there, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't remember what my character looks like.
I don't really remember either, actually.
I've played as her for 150 some hours, and I'm like, she's blue?
Yeah. I certainly don't remember my loadout.
She might be purple, actually. I don't remember. I really don't remember what she looks like.
With Destiny, it's all about the loadout, and I don't even remember that. So that just goes to show you.
I have some fancy... I love my I got a lot of my gears has like feathers and gold trim, and like I have a Crusader-looking coat and stuff. Yeah. She's a warlock. I really like some of the gear I have, but I guess it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't. Let's see. There's a season pass. It's called the expansion pass.
Of course. It isn't like I think it's a better deal to buy it at GameStop now, I think.
It is, but I don't know if it, you said of course, but things are changing. Like, a lot of shooters aren't having season passes anymore. This, to me, is a little bit of a throwback.
Yeah, well, Bungie got to get money, Activision got to get money.
They got money.
They got money, but they want more money.
They want more money.
Because they're spending a lot of money on this.
Yeah. I
don't mind paying a fee for expansion stuff if they're on the level of Taken King or Rise of. I mean, Rise of Iron wasn't as good as Taken King, but like by Taken King, I felt like they'd kind of got their head around what more or less what people wanted in terms of new content.
Yeah, it's understandable because a lot of when we say no season pass for a lot of shooters, what we're talking about is maps are free.
Yeah,
and they still have sort of the cosmetic DLC in there that sort of floats the boat.
And if they're smart, like the season pass will get you the new story content, but like. If there's multiplayer maps that come out of that new content, they'll just add that to the Crucible for free.
Yeah.
Because what does that hurt?
Yep. And then finally, there is an open beta coming early, and you get an earlier if you pre-order the game. Mm-hmm. PlayStation 4, Activision has signed up with Sony for this, so you're going to get preferential treatment on PlayStation 4. Did they say if expansion packs will be first on PS4?
I believe so, yeah.
It looks that way.
The same as the first game.
Yeah. Which won't be a problem for us if we're going to buy it on PlayStation 4. Mm-hmm. But everyone's going to be able to get a taste and going to be able to try out Destiny 2 before they decide to actually plunk their money down. They have not announced a hard date for the open beta yet, but typically, at least last time, it happened like 3 weeks before release. So expect that late August, probably mid to late August.
So. I mean, the beta on the first one is pretty much what sold me the game.
Yeah,
like I was more of like, oh, okay, I'll try it. Sort of like the Division. I was like, all right, I'll try it. Sure, it's right here, and I really liked how it felt. So I bought it, and that was all there was to really like.
Yeah,
but
that was it.
But I kept playing it.
Yeah. And
kind of a disease.
One last thing is that Bungie did say that they've heard all the complaints about the first game, about how the campaign didn't really feel like a campaign, and it felt like you were just playing an MMO. They said that they're doing things specifically to address that. A lot more cinemas, a lot more interaction with other characters.
Now you'll be playing in a big squad of guys, and you're going to be looking for someone called Mr. Chef.
Yeah. So, Bungie seems to be saying all the right things and talking a mean game here.
Yeah, but already I think you're starting to see, like... You know,
it's not that different.
They talked a big game about how much they were changing it, and in the end, it's not that...
It really isn't.
I mean, looking at even just that gameplay trailer, it's like, okay, well, there's that ship again.
Yeah.
Even I was looking at a gameplay trailer, I was like, okay, well, you could show this to me and I'd know it was Destiny.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's not necessarily a bad
Which,
thing.
I mean,
you don't have to change everything.
It is called Destiny 2, so some part of that does make sense. And another thing, too, is that Bungie did kind of work through a lot of the issues with the expansions for the first game. So I feel like a lot of people feel like by the time the last expansion was released, it was kind of in a good place.
Yeah, but I think also there's sort of a sentiment of by the time the last expansion was released, this is what the game should have launched as.
Yeah.
And so maybe Destiny 2 will be the game Destiny 1 should have been.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the main hope.
And I think that was the subtitle for pretty much every preview that was written from that event yesterday.
Well, because remember that like Destiny 1 was supposed to last 10 years.
Right.
You were supposed to carry your character over forever or whatever thing. You know.
Yeah.
They were trying to use it as a platform.
Yeah.
And that platform just wasn't up to...
I mean, that really was one of the first ideas of, hey, we can make a game as a platform.
Yeah.
And we all thought it was crazy, but...
I thought it makes sense if they could pull it off, but like make something interesting enough to play for 10 years, and they didn't.
Overwatch did that.
Yeah, yes, they did.
Leave it to Blizzard to step in and show them how it was done.
I mean, 2026, I'm sure we'll be playing the 10th anniversary event on Overwatch.
Exactly, and I mean, you also think about it, it's, the fact that Bungie has to come to Blizzard for its online service. I mean, we're kind of seeing the hierarchy here at Activision, aren't we?
Yeah, I had a nice little...
We're seeing the big boys of Blizzard being like...
Yeah, I had a nice little conspiracy theory about the Battle.net Blizzard launcher thing, where it was like,
Fake news!
Fake news. But what if, internally, because clearly this would have been something they discuss a while, planning to do.
What you would think.
Right. But the discussions for this would have been going on some time, a year or more ago.
Yeah.
What if part of the deal was, okay, you can put Destiny on our thing and call it Battle.net, but we get to change the name of the launcher to Blizzard? Name it after ourselves, so no one forgets where they are.
Right. Yeah, possible.
Zero evidence of that. It's not like a clever way to give you hearsay or anything.
Yeah.
That's just like how I like to imagine corporate deals happening. Where it's just like Blizzard just being imagine Blizzard giving that condition while they're just sort of sitting on their side of the meeting room table, like counting money.
Yeah.
Like that's what if,
That's like the time I went to, when I was working at Game Trailers and the site was blowing up and like Ubisoft's trailers were doing like 6 or 7 million views a piece on our site. And me and the executive team, we all went to Ubisoft to have a meeting with them to try to figure out how we could work even better with them, because we're like, man, it was like the first Assassin's Creed, and then Assassin's Creed 2 was coming up. I mean, GT was just huge then. Like, we were getting exclusives for everything. And so I went up there to try to pitch them on ideas to get even more exclusives for GT, and then ultimately to run on the TV show and all that kind of stuff. And I was in the meeting with all their executives, and it was me and like 3 other executives from Viacom. And it was floated in that meeting that we should begin paying Ubisoft for its trailers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We're like, so we'll be the only ones to get them then? None of the other sites would get them, and you won't put it on YouTube. Oh no!
You can't run them in commercials. We will be your sole source of marketing. Is what you're saying.
It was insane. I was like, you lost your mind. And I will say, the person who said that is a very highly respected person within the industry. I'm not going to out him with using his name, but they were like, they floated the idea of us paying for their trailers to run them on GT. So
nope.
Yep, so that's it. I think we went through every little factoid that's known so far about Destiny 2. Much more will be coming very soon, obviously with E3 right around the corner. And it's going to ramp up because the game comes out now in a few months. So They are on a tight schedule, which means it should be good stuff for us as far as information coming out at a steady clip. And with that, it's time for our trailer of the week. In hindsight, I feel like I probably should have chosen the new South Park Fractured Butthole trailer. But instead, I went with one that I thought had more impact, which is, as I mentioned earlier, is the debut campaign trailer for Splatoon 2. Get those questions into the chat so we can answer them when we get back. Let it roll, Sam. So what do you think, Matt? Do you think that looks all that different from the campaign in the first Splatoon?
Well, it looks like it has a little more meat on it.
Yeah.
It looks about, bare minimum what constitutes a campaign beyond sort of the generic fighting game campaign of like play a ladder of things, and then that's basically what the campaign of the first one was.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's more than the first one. There's a little more variety, there's a little difference. Maybe you learn a little bit about the world. I don't know if I want to know more about the world.
Because it
seems really weird. Yeah. And you're like, so what evolutionary force caused a bunch of paint to become people? But you all kind of look evil?
It's ink, Matt. It's ink.
Oh, it's ink?
Yeah.
All right.
It's not paint.
Paint, ink. Ink and paint.
Honestly, I think it looks about the same. I mean, it looks like maybe it's a little more robust, but...
Yeah, well, it looks like there's characters more now. There's something to it.
I
don't know. It
seems like they're taking
fine.
the easy way out to me.
Yeah, well, a lot of anything between Zelda and Mario right now on the Switch feels like that to me. With the possible exception of Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Yep. Here's a fun question from Drunken Elvis, one of our regular members on the stream. It's my birthday today. Happy birthday. And I have received Farpoint and Injustice 2. Which should I play first?
I would say play Farpoint first, because you're going to stop playing that soon enough to play some Injustice.
And I would say the opposite. I would say play Farpoint last, because once you play it, you're going to be sick and you're not going to want to play anything else. If you're like me, anyway.
See, I stopped. Yes, I had to go to bed, so I'd be up in time to come here. But I stopped Farpoint just because at a certain point I'm just like, that's enough for now. I wasn't sick. My eyes weren't tired. It was just I was tired of shooting spiders.
Yeah.
And Injustice can maybe suck you in and get you playing for longer than you think you will. So what I'm saying is if you play Injustice first, you might find you're out of time to try Farpoint today.
Got ya.
That's why I said Farpoint first.
Cheater Hater. Thoughts on Black Ops 2 being in the top 10 of MPD and what it means for the future of backwards compatibility. Oh, also, by the way, Black Ops 2 outsold Infinite Warfare.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, overall?
Just
like
for
lifetime that today, or just that week?
For Lifetime, it's destroyed it. But just this last month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Black
Ops
total?
2. Yeah.
Or just for the month?
Just for the month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Infinite Warfare really didn't seem to catch the imagination, did it?
It didn't, which is a shame. I think it's at least the campaign is really good.
Yeah.
Black Ops 2 is a great frick. That's my thought. I've said it on this show so many times. Black Ops 2 is my favorite Call of Duty game. And apparently other people agree that it's the best Call of Duty game. I just think that's what it is. I don't think it's an indictment on how good or bad Infinite Warfare is. I think Black Ops 2 is just that damn good, especially the multiplayer. I love it. I can totally see why people wanted to pick it up. I'm sure a lot of people double-dipped. People who had already bought like the box copy or whatever and just got it again. So
even though those are some pricey games as far as the backwards compatibility sale went.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, other stuff was like $250.
Right.
And like the Call of Duty stuff was all $20.
Well, look, if you're going to sell...
there's no reason not to make it any lower if it's selling like that.
Right. Well, you look at that Retro Zombies map pack that's going for like $40 or whatever. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, a map pack is $15. I don't know what's going on. I mean, but...
Well, part of it, I think, is because, like we talk about, or Impactor talked about, maybe not this week, last week. I can't remember. Sometimes I can't remember when I watch them on YouTube or when I watch them on Sifted.
Yeah.
But he talked about how, you've got people in the AAA space, the audience for that, there's people that buy 1 or 2 games a year.
Yeah.
If you're buying 1 or 2 games a year, spending $40 to make a game you already own, have more content, probably isn't that crazy an expenditure.
Yeah.
Whereas with us, we're buying games every week. Like another $40 for a game we already spent $60 on. I was like, that's crazy. But
yeah,
like,
for us, it's an either or.
Right.
For them, it's like more.
Right.
I guess that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
That's kind of how when I see that something that costs that much as a DLC thing selling, I'm like, that must be to people who just don't spend any other money on games.
It's still dirty on Activision's part to
but again, it's like
their customers like that.
If their customers didn't think it was worth it, it wouldn't sell that well.
You're right.
So,
the market gets what the market will pay for. Yeah. Yakov 226. Rime is coming out next week. What are you thinking about now versus when it was announced? I'm less excited for Rime now than I was before.
Just because of the troubles?
The troubles, the delay, the jittery platform announcements. It's coming to this platform now. It's not coming to this platform. It just doesn't seem like the studio is all that organized in the development cycle for the game, which makes me a little nervous. There has been a lot of gameplay coming out for that game over the last couple of weeks, and it looks pretty good. I mean, look, I'm going to give it a whirl.
Yeah.
I've been too excited about it in the past to not at least try it. But I think my expectations are a lot lower, because generally, if you have a game that's that good and that amazing, basing that on where I had kind of placed it, you don't have these problems during development. Like, you just don't have it. Like, you don't hear these crazy stories about games being delayed, taken off of one platform, being exclusive to a platform, and then going multi-plat. Like, you don't hear that, like, if a game is amazing. And I think, some of this stuff that's happened is probably the result of the game not coming together the way it was supposed to, or the way it was originally intended. So, I'm still excited for it. I'm just a little more nervous about it.
I was never particularly enthused to begin with, but...
Well, you got to realize this was during the Zelda drought, before we had Breath of the Wild.
I'm
That's
curious.
the other thing. Like, Zelda's come out now, and so the draw for it isn't quite what it was.
I'm curious. I'll play it. I mean, I like how it looks. That's about all I can say about it at this point.
Here's a question from Vin. Congratulations once again. Name a game which hasn't been leaked, hinted at, or announced which you would like to see at E3.
Metroid.
Yeah, we're on all aboard on that one.
In the realm of like Sega saying they're bringing old stuff back, I would love to see a modern Streets of Rage.
I feel like the beat 'em up thing is over with.
Maybe, but how about a Streets of Rage Souls game?
That would make more sense. Because then it wouldn't just be this repetitive slog of just beating people up the whole time.
Either that or, like, I mean, I think the Surge has somewhat proven that you can put a more complex combat system moment to moment in there and make it work. And I think you do something similar like that with Streets of Rage, make each fight like a real thing as opposed to just mowing down endless bad guys.
Yeah.
You can have something there. The other thing I would love to see come back from them is Shinobi.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, it's been a while.
Since the PS2. Well, actually,
Really?
there was a 3DS game.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
But that didn't count. Well, I'd just like to see a Shinobi collection at this point. It's very hard to find a decent copy of Revenge of Shinobi these days.
For me, it's Ninja Gaiden. After Team Ninja redeemed itself with Neo and proved that it could make an excellent game, I am jacked up to see the next Ninja Gaiden.
I think you'll be waiting a while.
I think I might. But
you have to at least wait through Neo 2.
Yeah, I know. You think so?
I think so.
I don't know about that. I think they'll get a Ninja Gaiden out this gen. They have to.
No, they don't have to.
It'll sell better than Neo.
Maybe.
And Neo sold pretty well.
I wouldn't mind seeing a Ninja Gaiden that took some lessons from Neo.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and obviously it will. It'll be informed by Neo. Neo looks great, plays really fast. I would be really stoked to see a new Ninja Gaiden. Especially now that Itagaki's kind of gone and completely out of the picture, and all his kind of, I wouldn't say cronies, but a lot of his more loyal people that worked with him there have now left, and they're working at Valhalla with him, and now that team has really become sort of Yosuke's team.
As long as they keep going back and playing Razor's Edge a lot to remember what they did wrong.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that game was bad. So yeah, and Metroid for both of us. I think we'll see a Metroid at E3. I think Retro Studios, that's exactly what it's been working on, and I think we'll get at least a first trailer or something.
Justin Horman asks, Shadow Warrior 2 just came out for consoles after being PC only since late last year. Are there any other games that are only available on PC that you think you could do well enough with console controls to take advantage of the console-only audience?
Quake Champions. Have you been playing that beta at all this week?
No.
I haven't either, man. I wish I had time. I wanted to give it a whirl. But Quake, if there's one game that's only PC right now that I want to play on consoles and will work on consoles, I think that's it.
It's not done yet. Maybe it will come to consoles when it's done. But I would say Kentucky Route Zero.
No.
Which is a different way to go with this question.
For sure.
But I think more people should play that game because it's amazing. And it's still not done, and God knows when it will be done, because the last episode, there was like, what, a year and a half between episode 3 and episode 4?
Yeah.
And they got one more to go. But when that thing comes out fully, I would love to see it on every platform imaginable, because it's great and people should play it.
I know that...
And it's in a Humble Bundle right now, if you want to go get it.
Yeah. I know that a lot of people will say I'm crazy for saying this and think it's not possible, but I would love to see League of Legends on a console. Even if you have to pack in, like, a peripheral, and I'm sure you've seen these, Matt, those, like, PC keyboards that just kind of wrap around your hand and you have, like, the keys, like, there to play with. Like, I would totally do that to play League of Legends while sitting on a couch. It's not like a lot of RTSs where you use the whole keyboard to play. You can really play League of Legends with, like, around 10 keys or something like that. So I would love to be able to kick back and play League of Legends instead of sitting like this, like, the whole time while I'm playing. So if I could pick another one, that would be one for me. I know it will probably never happen, but we can dream, right? JM Rain 99. I can never read the names that are in green. JM Rain 09?
JM Rain 99.
99.
It's light blue on mine.
He's green on mine for some reason.
Yeah, I think the colors are random.
Hey guys, I bought a PSVR right away, and now it has been sitting. I'm sorry. I hope you didn't listen to me and went and bought it. I mentioned, I think it was last week, that I felt bad for recommending PlayStation VR now. Other than Farpoint, any other recent game or experience for the PSVR that I should check out? No. I'll tell you the PlayStation...
Unless you haven't played Resident Evil.
Yeah, definitely. The PlayStation VR game I've played the most in recent memory is Werewolves Within. It's a Ubisoft kind of group, like, board game. It works. It's a lot like Star Trek Bridge Crew. Yeah. It's more of a social type experience instead of a hardcore game.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would keep your eye on Bridge Crew in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I guess if you haven't played I Expect You to Die, which was out in December... I thought that was fun. It's like a James Bond style death trap puzzle game, which is kind of one of those things. Kind of one of those things that only would work in VR. I mean, you could do it normal with like a normal controller or mouse and keyboard, but I don't think it would have the same impact.
Yeah. Let's see. Erebus Jones, what's the most overrated game you've played in the last 10 years? Jeez.
Overrated gameplay in the last 10 years.
Well, I would say Bloodborne. I know people will think I'm crazy for that, but... It's a hard one.
Yeah, I might say Splatoon.
That's another good pick.
That's
another good pick.
See, I'm going back to 2007 to 4.
I mean, I would even say on some level Breath of the Wild a little bit. I don't think it's one of the best games
at the
ever
time.
made.
I would have said Skyward Sword, but I think that thing happened where like no one can say anything bad about a Zelda game for like 6 months,
and then
after like 6 months, everyone starts to kind of come out of the honeymoon phase and starts to be like, "Yeah, this is kind of annoying." And like eventually, Skyward Sword.
Oh, now everybody when they talk about it,
yeah, Skyward Sword is now like the bad Zelda game. A lot of people, it's like, oh, okay, so because when it came out, no one could say anything.
Oh, I did, and man, I got.
I know. I don't know. I'd have to think pretty hard about like. Even though I like it, Darksiders 1 would probably make that list. Like, I don't think Darksiders 1 is as good as the sum of its parts, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, even though I like it and I played through it twice, I think we gave it a 2 out of 5, and I still kind of stand by that. Even though I like it, you know, everyone's got.
No, I can understand that. I can see.
It's like how I really love the movie Equilibrium, even though I know it's trash.
Yeah.
Like for whatever reason, I just like it.
Here's one from Vero Sifted. Do you guys think with Scorpio coming out, we may see games released saying native 4K is exclusive to Xbox or PlayStation, meaning it's limited to 1080p on PS4 Pro or Xbox Scorpio as part of a deal?
I don't think
that's a great question.
I mean, you should float. I mean, that would be something like if you can ever float that in a marketing meeting, like somebody was going to hail you as a hero. But like that, as a developer, as a publisher, I feel like I wouldn't want to make a deal where my game looked intentionally worse on another platform for any reason.
Well, first of all, I don't think PlayStation 4 Pro
is not going to be in a position to do it.
It'll never be able to do it. I mean,
you're really talking about a Scorpio thing here.
Yeah, or PlayStation 5. That's where it starts to get dicey when it's Scorpio against PlayStation 5.
I could see it becoming a thing that like they individually they brag about, like like
we're native, you're checkerboard,
4K native only on PlayStation kind of thing. I could see that happen, but I feel like that would be like
them.
Just a thing. It
wouldn't be a deal that they crack with the publishers or the developers. But I could definitely. I mean, we may see this with Scorpio boxes. Only 4K native, like a little thing in the corner of the box or something like that. Because that's something that PlayStation won't be able to say.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the marketing and the TV advertisements for Scorpio doesn't get a little techie and says, maybe even goes a little old school where they start comparing and they're like, here's checkerboard 4K, here's native 4K.
Like I could see
it's a differentiator.
Yeah. Like I mean, you could definitely come up with some like, Genesis does what Nintendo don't style ads of like some guy standing on a checkerboard and it's like, is this how you want to play your game?
Right.
Like every other square has game footage in it. Like, but like, where's the rest of it?
And then the
rest of it's on
unifies
Scorpio,
it into one picture.
Kind of yeah. Like I could see them playing.
They should hire us.
Yeah, we could call us Microsoft. We got you on this one. If you have any freaking games to play.
Yeah, that's the problem. What game would they show in that ad?
Yeah, because if it's Crackdown, Shane's not doing it.
Yeah, I won't. That's where I'll draw the line.
I can tell you that right now.
Another one from Vin. Since we haven't seen Vin for a while, we'll answer another one of his. How are you guys feeling about 2017 as a year in gaming? I think it's one of the strongest in a long time, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
I agree. It's one of the strongest in a long time.
Oh, yeah. I honestly think when it's all said and done, it might be the greatest year in gaming ever.
It's up there.
Seriously. I mean, look, we're at a place where...
call me in December, when it comes down to, like, is it better than 1998? But it's on track.
It is on track. And, the one issue is that the industry is so mature now
Right.
that you're never going to have another year exactly like 98.
Right.
Where
3 games that changed the industry happened inside of a month.
Right.
That's
all
just
because of the technology.
Right.
I mean, you could say maybe we had that opportunity with VR and PlayStation VR last year. But unfortunately,
I think we definitively say that did not happen.
It did not happen, right? And even in its second year, where it's kind of finding its footing, it's still not really hitting that point.
Although once again, I'll say off of the back of the Battlefront VR thing, Rogue One thing, which I believe only existed because of Rogue One marketing money.
Sure, yeah.
If you make that into a whole game, I'll buy another one just to support. I mean, people. That is amazing. That's one of the greatest things, and I'm very excited about Ace Combat 7. Which is
delayed till 2018.
Whatever you need to do
to
make that, especially if it means making the whole game VR and not just like a section.
Yeah,
like I'm in for that game no matter what.
But so if you look at innovation, I don't know if you're ever going to beat 98. But if you're looking at a year in gaming as
great game.
Just how many great games there were. I honestly think this year might be the best year ever. And we're only halfway through.
I mean,
it's tracking that way right now.
Certainly if we get a Mario and God knows what else we don't know about yet, a revamped Assassin's Creed, like, Far Cry 5 makes it, like if Red Dead Redemption 2 makes it. I mean, there's a lot of heavy hitters still to come.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it could be like, 98 may be still the better year in terms of landmark watershed games, but 2017 might be the best year in terms of, back up the truck.
Yeah.
Just dump them in the garage. I'll get to them when I get to them.
Yeah, which maybe never in my case. Sweet Cheeks Magoo, my favorite name on our chat every week. How has your enjoyment or habits of gaming changed as you get older, and how do you think they will continue to change over time? Another great question. Because they're knocking it out of the park today. I don't know how much my habits have changed, but I know my wife's tolerance for video games has gone way down. Playing Persona 5, which, by the way, I know we're going to talk about it again. I thought I had finished that game, and I don't want to spoil how the end of the game works, but I had finished the mission of the entire game.
Right.
Finished it, saved it, put it away. Done, right? I'm getting ready to write the eval, and I'm like, okay, well, I just need to briefly check out the Game Plus. I had not finished the game.
No. You mean the Mementos?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I am. That's where I was before when I was talking about almost being done. And I tried, because I was too busy doing other stuff and playing other stuff this week, so I didn't finish it. I did try to get through that final Mementos section on the weekend, and I fell asleep.
Yeah.
Because it's so long.
Boring and long,
But yeah, no, it keeps going.
Yeah. Anyway, my wife will not let me play Persona on the TV anymore.
Oh, my girlfriend, even last night, I had the PS4 on when she was on the couch, and she's like, "You're not going to play Persona, are you?"
She cannot. The music. She's like,
music,
I liked that at first, and she's like, I cannot take it anymore. And it's like, we complained about it, and then I saw someone shot back at us saying, "Oh, there's 150 songs on the soundtrack. Isn't that enough for you, or whatever?" It's
not when they only play one of them during fights,
right? Over and over. And my wife, when your wife gets pissed off about something, that's when you know it's bad. So that has changed my relationship with gaming. Between my wife and I, that has changed a lot. Like, she used to try games. She would, when I'd have a new game, and I'd be playing it, she used to come home and be like, "What's that? Tell me the story about that, and who makes it, and blah, blah, blah." She doesn't care about gaming at all anymore. She did play Pokemon Go for, a couple days or whatever, but otherwise, her tolerance for me gaming and her gaming, completely kaput. She's over it. So that changes my perspective a little bit on gaming, because now when she comes home, I'm thinking, what am I playing? Is the audio going to annoy her? Do I need to put on my headset and charge my headset and play it with... It's so weird to be sitting here, my wife to be sitting here, and me to have, headphones. It's just really bizarre. But other than that,
there's a Norman Rockwell painting for you.
Yeah. I would say that my palette for what I play has expanded. It continues to expand. I play more types of games than I ever have. I always thought that as time would go on, I'd kind of find these genres that I really liked and kind of focus on those, but that's not been the case at all. I play a lot more genres than I ever did on a more regular basis, and I think a big part of that is just that the overall quality of games just continues to go up.
But I also think, I find the same thing is happening with me, and part of that is because a lot of the genres I used to like that went dormant have come back because of the indie scene.
Yeah.
Point-and-click adventure games are back, space sims are back, arcade flight games are back, side-scrolling games are back. I mean, you're not limited to, there was a period there where it was like AAA games and sort of the odd B-list game, but now like you can get almost any kind of game you want from the indie scene.
Yep. And they're good.
I've even started playing some of the visual novel stuff, and like some of that's really good.
Yeah.
Like, all the good writers are apparently over there and not writing for Atlas.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell.
And it's what we talked about before, too, with the middleware and the tools that are available now. You don't have to burn all this time just getting up to speed or building your own engine. It's really just like drag and drop.
Yeah. And just like
snap it together.
Even things that like are throwbacks to things I like back in the day that I don't want to replay, but I want to play something like them. Cosmic Star Heroine being go check that game out, people. Like Boyd Games needs the sales for one thing, and it's if you like Phantasy Star or Chrono Trigger or Suikoden, Cosmic Star Heroine will be your heroine, both in with the E and without the E. And it's short; you can finish it in like 2 days.
Let's see, maybe answer one or two more.
MixIQ or whatever keeps asking me about Logan. I still haven't seen Logan. Trust me, as soon as I see Logan, I will say something at the end of one of these shows. I have also not seen Alien Covenant because I'm not stupid. And you fooled me once, Ridley Scott. Not going to fool me again.
There you go.
Nuh-uh. I'm going to go see Wonder Woman, though.
Here's the last one from The Legacy. Does the pressure to complete a game fast for review take away enjoyment you would have if you played it at your own pace? Depends on the game.
Yeah, it can.
It absolutely can. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the game, and it depends on the deadline, and how early you get it. Sometimes, like it used to be with Nintendo, sometimes we get Nintendo games like a month and a half before they hit retail, and you have plenty of time. But even Nintendo's really tightened that up over the last like 4 or 5 years, where you get it like a week before. With a game like Breath of the Wild, it was almost impossible to get it done in time.
I think more often I found that, like, especially if the game is good, more often I find it a relief to be done with the work and go back to play the game more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If the game is good, it survives becoming work to some degree.
Yeah.
Dark Souls on a deadline sucks, though. I'll tell you that
that's
much.
what I was saying. It depends on the game. Any challenging game, if you're playing it on a deadline and you didn't get like a month before the deadline, yes, it absolutely affects your enjoyment of the game.
Like, I can't even imagine playing Persona on any kind of deadline.
I'm still baffled that these people got it done for embargo. I still cannot understand
some people
it.
I know had it like 2 months out.
Oh, okay.
There were some of the outlets I found out got a reviewable copy like basically in February.
Oh, okay.
Like around the time it was supposed to originally come out.
That makes sense.
So some of these outlets had an adequate amount of time to get through the whole thing.
Yeah. But yeah, challenging games on a tight deadline, it will absolutely affect how much you enjoy it. I think the longer that you've done this, though, you learn to calibrate it. Like you realize, I'm getting frustrated because I'm on this deadline, but you also don't let that actually play into how you evaluate how much you enjoy the game.
There are some games that like eventually get to the point where I'm like, I don't want to review that.
Yeah.
Like, I love the early Assassin's Creed games. I hit a point where I'm like, I'm not going to review that. I reviewed Assassin's Creed 1 and maybe 2, I think, and after that I'm like, I just want to take my time and have fun with these.
Yep.
Same with like when Shenmue 3 comes out. I don't want to review that. I want to take my time and enjoy it.
Play it how you want.
Yakuza. I wouldn't want to review that. In part because again, that's another crazy game to have on the deadline.
Yep.
But I like to, if I'm a completist about something, I'm not going to probably want to review it because I'm going to want to take my time and go through it at my own pace.
Yep.
If it's just sort of a straight up a game I'm going to play, like that's different. Or a game that like where completism isn't a big deal. It's like you're not trying to fill in that whole that 100% completion thing. Like even in that sense, Dark Souls is actually a better game for review for me because I'm not worried about getting every single item and every single thing. I just want to get to the end.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but it can happen. But I can't think off the top of my head any examples of like games that I just didn't like after reviewing because it had been such a terrible experience. Because reviewing a game is really pretty easy as jobs go.
All right, we'll take one more because here's one of our subscribers who's on the stream who's been asking the question several times. I want to make sure we get his answer. JReedVic7 asks, how much do you think new console SKUs have hurt software sales? How much will they continue to do so going forward? Doesn't seem like publishers and first party are on the same page this gen.
Have they hurt sales?
Well, he said how much.
I mean, because everything's compatible with everything, I feel like that's not really a big factor.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're... Well, I don't know. I think Scorpio may be hurting sales a little bit. Maybe people are waiting to see if these games that are coming out for Xbox One are going to work on Scorpio, even though Microsoft has said that they will. The average consumer doesn't know everything we know. I think
the average consumer doesn't know the Scorpio exists.
You're right.
So
yeah, you're absolutely
I don't think
right.
that's a factor there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe after E3?
Yeah. Or maybe...
I could see, like, you know, certainly with, like, if you're waiting for the Scorpio after it's announced at E3, maybe you're holding off on buying games because you're waiting until they look good on your new Scorpio. That's not going to start to eat into software sales probably until the fall, because there's not much coming out during the summer.
Especially for Xbox.
Yeah. But, I mean, again, we're also looking at, this fall we're going to find out, was last year's, drop in sales for all the AAA stuff, was that because of was that a last year thing, or is that the new normal?
Or was it people, like he says, waiting for better hardware, worried that the new hardware of these games won't work with it?
If those people were there, then how the hell did the Xbox One S sell like it did?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like I don't think the people that make these things big million seller hits are not informed enough to know that new hardware is in the pipeline.
For it to affect whether they're going to buy a game or not. I agree. Yeah.
And again, as long as they're compatible, it's not. I don't think it's going to be a big shot in the foot.
Yeah,
basically.
I agree. So that's going to do it. That'll wrap it up for GameFace episode 88 right here on Sifted Games. Hope you guys have an excellent weekend. E3 right around the corner. We're going to start ramping up. A lot of other shows have already been doing their E3 predictions, blah, blah, blah. We want to wait till it's a little closer to the show. It's still a month away. I get these sites have invested a ton of money in E3, and we used to be guilty of it at GT too. And it wouldn't be our decision.
Well,
it would be the guy who wrote the check for the budget who would be like, hey, you guys should probably start hyping up E3 because we're spending a metric ton of money on it.
Well, it's also kind of a... there's actually games to talk about this May, which there aren't always.
That's true. Yeah. So we have not been without topics on GameFace at all. But we'll start ramping up for E3 very soon, folks. So everyone have an excellent weekend. GameFace is up and out.